as I was starting to lose my ability to use my hands and, my motor skills, the only way I could communicate once they put the life support in my chest with my mother was to write in this book. From when you first open it, you can see where I'm writing perfectly fine. As you turn the pages, it fades and it gets a little more dark. Like, God, please take me home. And, if this passes, I'll do, you know what I mean? It's like, it gets pretty dark, man. You can see what was going on in my mind. I did want to die at a certain point. But then it started getting more hopeful, and then the lines went flat, and then the pages are empty. I was able to tip her head back and pour the mushrooms with the turkey tail, psilocybin, and vitamin D in just a little bit of water. And it's the first thing she actually consumed in over a week. And the last words she said as a human being were, "That's good." It's the very last thing she ever said. And from that moment on, I knew what my path was.
What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit podcast. What we do on this podcast is bring guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, to share their journey and everything along the way that led them to where they're at today. Real conversations, raw emotion, and the kind of human connection that can't be faked. We're here to make an impact, and that is what we do. So if that is for you, like, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And if that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but it's time to jump on board today. Thank you. But without further ado, I would love to introduce today's guest, Mr. Edward Crowe.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Hey, welcome here, man. I'm so stoked to have you. It's an honor. And so people know, you're a music business executive, photographer, CEO of Murder Cigars, and a psilocybin ceremonialist, which I find very interesting.
That's right.
And for those that don't know Edward, or how we got introduced was through, it's an upcoming podcast, or actually it'll be behind us. Our friend Warren
Stillery. I'm very thankful to call him a friend.
Yeah, shout out to Warren.
Shout out Warren.
Appreciate you, bro. But Edward, man, so good to have you.
Thank you, brother. Glad to be here.
Real quick, before we dive into all the stuff you got going on, your journey and taking it back to the beginning, what does life look like for you today?
Today, I'm on the go, man. I say I'm in the wind, time traveling, between the cigars and real estate, photography. Photography's taking a little bit of a backseat, but managing artists, running a distribution platform, ticketing platform. We have a lot of different companies.
Yeah.
So I stay very, very busy, but I'm thankful, man. That's something to be thankful for.
Yeah, 110%, man. It sounds like you like to tackle opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And absolutely. You have like a diverse portfolio of stuff.
It's like as soon as I have an idle moment, I'm filling it with something, whether it's good for me or not. You know what I mean? Yeah,
because either way, you're going to learn.
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be an experience for better or worse.
That's right.
Right? So
you win or you lose, you're going to learn.
100%. So you either, I think it's always a win.
That's right.
Just keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, man. Well, before we dive into everything you got going on, Edward, take it back, man. Where do you hail from? Let's go back to the beginning of your journey, where you were born, some influences there in your life, what childhood was like, and I'll let you take it from there.
So I was born in Wilmington, Delaware, and I lived in a place called Harbor House Apartments, which is not the best part of town, but I remember hanging out by myself as a little kid, probably 7, 8 years old, walking around there and literally dreaming about what I'm living right now. You know what I mean? I remember in my mind visualizing as a child what I wanted to be. And it's literally where I'm walking right now.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So we lived there, Wilmington, Delaware, until I was 10 years old. And then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, because my father was a country music writer, singer-songwriter.
Okay. So you lived there for 12 years. Was it a pretty good, did you say it was a pretty rough area or not? Like, what was
those
it like?
Those apartments that I was living in, Harbor House, it's one of them places it's not really a safe place to go.
Oh, about it if you're from there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the best place to go. But, I stayed with my grandparents a lot.
Okay.
And a lot of my interest in mysticism and magic and things like this. And at this point, it was magic like a magician, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat or cutting somebody in 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Right. But my grandmother would read me esoteric texts like H.P. Blavatsky or Edgar Cayce. And, I'm 7, 8 years old. That's odd literature to read a child. You know what I mean? But I thought it was it's really shaped who I am today. You know what I mean?
100%.
It turned from there into, like, she would have Egyptian bust all around the house and read me these, you could say, strange texts. And it sparked my interest in the mystery.
Yeah.
Which then led to me being a magician, performing magician. I would do birthday parties and corporate events, and then I was an assistant to bigger magicians. You know, and then I became interested in that, and I had a mentor named David Price, who had a museum, a magic museum called Egyptian Hall Museum. Interviewed him, did a lot of cool stuff. Moved down here when I was 10.
Okay.
Because of my father being a songwriter. But and then over the years, man, I was a magician, a graffiti artist, and I was a member of a crew called AM7. And anyone who knows Nashville graffiti in the years of man, probably like 95 to pretty present these days, you know what I mean? Close to current.
Yeah.
But AM7 was like the prominent crew in Nashville, Tennessee. And there was only, I think, 4 guys, and they were all legendary. You know what I mean?
Really?
I somehow finagled my way into this group of people, and they mentored me and schooled me and taught me, you know, how to do what we did. But a lot of these things were about keeping it secret, which is interesting. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like a little secret society of guys doing these things.
That's right.
Right. But I was talking about with Warren, you know, like I said, dude, every man needs to be a part of some kind of secret society.
Right.
I think it's good for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
camaraderie, brotherhood, fellowship.
Yeah, 100%, man. So it started off young.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think learning a lot of that mystic type of stuff also kind of possibly ingrains that a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, like I take from Tolkien Brotherhood, and, you know, I love Lord of the Rings, right? So that applies to just life.
Right.
But I see that brotherhood and that fellowship, man, I think it just applies to the same concept we're talking about. And I did want to ask, though, what was it like, I guess, adjusting, though, acclimating to being in the South, coming from like the understanding of all the different things your grandmother was teaching you?
It was an odd switch up. You know what I mean? When we came down here, we moved right to Antioch, Tennessee.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it was, culturally, it was completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Completely different, from the accent to the way people dress to the way people act and talk. You know what I mean? But we adapted fairly quickly, and I found this to be my real home. You know what I mean? Like, when I was 16, they wanted to move back, and I didn't want any part of it. I ended up coming down with the Guillain-Barré and said, if I live through this, I just want to move back to Nashville. And they promised me, if you live through it, we'll move back. And we did.
Really? Yeah, dive into that a little bit. I know that's a life-changing experience for you.
That's like my Phoenix moment. You know what I mean? That's my moment of what feels like the closest thing to a rebirth in this reality.
Yeah.
Right? And it was Guillain-Barré Syndrome is a syndrome that attacks the myelin sheath, which is what protects your nerves. You know, it's the how do you call it? Like the wrapping or, you know, outer layer of your nerves.
Yeah.
And it eats that away, causing you to be paralyzed. So I had one of the worst cases that they had ever seen at Crowe Medical Center. And I was actually misdiagnosed at DuPont. And they said it was all in my head, you know, and then they made me walk back, and I needed a wheelchair. And long story short, my lung collapsed at home. And they had to go rush me to the hospital, get that back right. And then I was diagnosed at 4 something in the morning at Crowe Medical Center. And I remember the moment when I was, you know, this is I'm skipping around a lot, but after a month in the ICU, going down to ICU step down, and then making my way out to where it was time to learn how to walk again.
Yeah.
The nurse who did that was incredible and knew that I was an artist and a creative. And they told me if I could learn how to put my clothes on, because I was frustrated and kind of depressed and didn't want to do that. But if I could learn how to put my clothes on, then they would allow me to paint this canvas. So they took me outside and used that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was only 16, so they had to kind of use some leverage.
That is nuts, man. How quickly did things go from like normal living to life-threatening?
Man, it was really odd because it happened fairly quickly, but we were in Delaware and we were coming down to Gatlinburg for like a vacation. And I started feeling tingling in my hands. And I felt the tingling in my feet. And it wouldn't go away. It's like if you sat on your hands and then it lasts for a minute or two, but it wouldn't go away. Same thing in my feet. Didn't really think much of it. Then it went to my mouth, and I could feel the tingling in my tongue. And that's when we went to the hospital. And they said it was all in my head. And then we finally figured out that it was Guillain-Barré Syndrome, which you have a better chance of being struck by lightning.
Damn, is that rare?
Yeah, it's that rare. And we actually got May 1st made Guillain-Barré Awareness Day in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'd love to, represent or be a part of it somehow. Yeah, I'd love to come help.
For you too, for
yeah,
sure.
if you're having some kind of event, man, let me.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
I'll be honored to have you there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Dude, that is wild. How did it feel at the time? Did you think you were ever going to die?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought 100% for sure. I mean, I was positive, even though I was wrong.
Yeah.
But I was positive because it felt like everyone was saying, well, this is going to reverse. We can't cure it. We have to reverse it. I'd never heard anything like that before. It didn't make any sense to me.
Like, how the hell do you reverse this
Hey,
thing?
reverse it. Well, just tell me you're going to cure it. And then, everybody who came in, no one had it. You know what I mean? It was so rare. They had doctors coming in from other countries to look at me, and it was the weirdest thing. They had to tell them, stop sending those people in.
Yeah.
We were interviewed on CNN World News Tonight with Dan Rather. And, yeah, man, it was crazy. It was a lot going on. But I definitely thought I was going to die at one point until they introduced a guy named Chris, who was a mailman, and he had Guillain-Barré. And when he came in and he told me, he basically said everything that I was thinking because I couldn't speak because I was on a life support on a fluid tube down in my lungs. And he was telling me the things that I was thinking, like almost answering my thoughts without knowing it, right? And that's when I felt like, okay, I might survive.
Yeah.
That man alone gave me hope to live, and it took him to provide that. No other person, if they hadn't walked that same path, could have given me that hope,
That's the one thing. That's like the only thing we have is hope, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hope and faith.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just a powerful thing. That's probably all you needed,
right,
to really change. Because I'm sure, I'm sure you had some extremely low moments, man.
Man, crazy.
Because you're looking ahead. You're like, dude, there's no way out of this.
Right.
So that little bit of hope from him planted a seed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what did your recovery look like after that?
I mean, man, they said it was the worst case they had ever seen that, healed the quickest. And, because I was completely from eyelids to, to my toes wouldn't move. My lungs didn't work. Nothing worked at all. You know what I mean? Everything was being either supplemented by, medical technology, or it just didn't work. They would have to wet my tongue and to keep it from drying out and breaking, and then they'd have to turn your body so you didn't get pneumonia, and it was insane. Move your muscles so you didn't freeze up like a dead body.
I bet that was terrifying for your family too.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing that really brought me through it, and this is what I try to embrace these days. I feel like a lot of the journey, the hero's journey is you end up back home. You end up where you started in the first place. And my cousins would come in, and they would just, I remember at one point we would take movie titles, and we would try to make them like sound dirty, you know what I mean, or something like that.
Yeah.
And we go through hundreds of them, and she'd just sit there with me, and we'd just crack up, you know what I mean? Who's eating Gilbert Grape or whatever the hell's going, the different names that we would come up with, right?
Yeah.
And the humor is what I think got me through it. The humor, the laugh, even though it was like the darkest hour, you know what I mean? Finding time to laugh.
Yeah.
And having people around me to help me remember to smile. I feel like that's really a big part of the medicine that brought me through the other side.
Man, that's really cool. That's a good thing to reflect on too. That's really positive insight. It brings me back to my accident, man. And just like, for me, it was, I think one of the biggest things I think about is like the gratitude, like gratitude pulled me through in a lot of ways because I saw how loved I was and, things like that. It's just the simple things that tend to have the biggest impact.
Absolutely.
On you, right? Because it all starts here. How do you think that maybe that experience changed your relationship with your own body, moving forward? Absolutely.
I mean, thinking about things like walking and taking that for granted, you can't even blame someone for taking it for granted. It just happens on autopilot. I jump out of bed and I run to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I'm not thinking about it. Why would I be thankful for it? But now I'm definitely thankful for it. I think about it. I think about those who can't do it and how I can help them when I see them.
Yeah. Do you think there's any kind of, could that come back or?
The Guillain-Barré?
Yeah.
So they claimed that the chances of me getting it again are the same as someone else getting it for the first time. Now, I've had scares before where I've started to get the tingle in my hands and feet and nothing came of it. But, and there is neurological damage that probably will never repair.
Really?
Yeah. Like synkinesis is something when your nerves in your face grow back, and maybe everywhere, but I know it to be my face. So if they grow back, if they should have grown back like this, they'll grow back tangled. You know what I mean? And then things like when you raise your eyebrows, different parts of your face move and things like that.
Is that ever just like in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really bothers me with the residual effects from Guillain-Barré is when it's bitter cold. Like my face won't move. I can't move my face at all. When I first got out of the hospital, I had to wear a ski mask everywhere I went just because it was so bad. You know
Really?
what I mean? Yeah.
Damn, man.
But it's I mean, the residual effects are pretty much gone now. It's been so long.
Yeah.
But that was like, feels like a whole nother lifetime ago.
Yeah. It's one of those things, man. It's like in the back of your mind, but you just keep moving forward.
That's right.
Now I think about, I got a graft on my aorta at 28, you know? It's not normal to get a graft at that young. And the doctors, the surgeons told me, like, watch your blood pressure, you know? And I'm like, bro, I'm an entrepreneur. I got a family. I'm thinking of the future. Like, right. My blood pressure has been high and I'm on medication for it and everything. And it's just like something in the back of my head, like, dude, I don't want to have a heart attack.
Right.
You know? I
right.
mean, if that fails, right? And it's not going to. I've got a purpose to fulfill. I believe that. And I've got a long time ahead of me. But every once in a while, man, those thoughts creep up.
100%. Now, was that from your accident?
Yeah, because I got the graft, like the aorta was bleeding into my right lung. So, yeah. So they put that, and you know, this again, I'm young to have a graft on, so I have to get scans every couple of years and everything, make sure it's good to go. Right. But it's weird when you go through those kinds of experiences, man, that like get you right there, those near death things.
I think it's interesting, like, you know, to take you to near death. You know, and I'm sure we've all had instances on multiple occasions. I've had smaller near-death experiences and some that are more substantial, like the Guillain-Barré is more noteworthy. But I've the closer I get and the more frequently those things happen, the better my relationship becomes with the idea of death. Yeah. You know what I mean? I agree. And it's more of of course, I'm not ready to go today, but I'm welcoming that energy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It makes life so much more purposeful. Right. Like, I push to extremes, man. My drive is through the roof. Something that just was turned on from that for sure. And I just like, go. I'm here to maximize this experience. You know what I'm saying? And it's such a positive thing, but it also can be trying to figure out how to word it, because I had like a pretty healthy relationship and idea like with death, right? Like embrace it as part of the cycle, man. Right. And I felt like I was in a good place with it, but then I had a family, right? I have a daughter, so I'm like, dude, I need to be here for her. Like, I can't leave you behind. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you know, it's just, so I'm like kind of re-understanding what that looks like. I mean, obviously I embrace the idea of death when that time comes, because I'm not worried, man. You know, it's the unknown to me. And so I'm going to step off in that void at some point, and it's all going to be well. But I know while I'm here, I got to maximize this. Right. And I want to maximize it because I'm blessed enough to be here and get to do so. Right. So you don't take things for granted, or you're less likely when going through those experiences, but it can make you kind of intense with it too, at least for me. So you get what I'm getting at. Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. And there's those other instances too. Now going back to that, moving forward, once you recovered, what did that look like, and what did life look like from then on? Man, it was when I recovered and learned how to walk again, I was out in public and I had to use a cane. You know, once I graduated from the walker. Yeah. I remember the day that I was in the ICU step down rehabilitation unit. Yeah. And I was walking by myself and I let go of the walker and took my first steps without the walker, and I screamed like I just won a championship fight down the hallway of the hospital. Dude, yes. And I was all by myself. And after that, you know, I was like, man, maybe 92 pounds, you know, which 5'9", 92 pounds, like you see somebody like that, the first thing you think is they're on drugs. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I had to walk around people who didn't know what I had just been through. You know, I bumped into this girl that I liked in high school, and we were friends or whatever, but I seen her at a store at a Wawa, and I was walking behind like a promo sign for Subway or something, I don't know. And so she couldn't see my cane. She could just see my face. And I just remember feeling some type of way when I came out from behind there, like, you know what I mean? And I said hello, she said hello, but it was definitely a difficult transition. Like, I looked like a skeleton. Like, my entire face was caved in. I was big dark circles. I mean, you know, it was really, really bad, man, making that transition and understanding that it was up from there. You know what I mean? Like you said, you get stuck in your mind sometimes. You think, man, is this going to be how it is forever? You know?
Yeah, dude. That reminds me when I was bouncing back, and I had a moment too where, like, my first time getting up on crutches, I had to learn how to re-walk. You know, I couldn't walk for a few months, and
Damn.
I remember I got the video on my phone. I can visualize it now, and I'm just like, you know, my mom's videotaping me. I'm like, Mom, come on. But it actually was a pivotal moment, right? And it's just those little things, man. But personally, I put a lot of weight and stock of myself, like my identity, into my physical capability, like strength and training and fighting, all that stuff. Like, done that my whole life.
Right.
And then I'm at a place where, like, at one point, you know, I needed my parents to help me wipe my ass, you know, and stuff like that.
Humbling.
Like, that's humbling as hell.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I get back in the gym and I can't do this, I can't do that. And I just remember being in tears, like it was all over.
Right.
But in reality, man, like, dude, I overcame that. You know,
well,
I
in
mean,
reality, it was like a rebirth, man. It's like a new you, a new perspective, new identity.
Yeah.
A new starting point. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
With a new appreciation for life. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, yeah, but once you finally it takes a little bit to realize that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's part of the process.
It is, because you got to be willing to get through that process too.
Right.
You know, going through these kinds of situations, you know, especially yours, like, you overcame it, and I mean, now, I don't know, we'll get to what came after, right? But you've got a lot of good stuff going on in your life, right?
Absolutely.
For me, same thing, but there's a lot of people that go through stuff like that, and they mentally give up, they check out. Was there a time that you thought you might after that, like when you were kind of creating that new identity?
Man, honestly, I never, ever really considered giving up. There was a time later in my life, due to different circumstances, I definitely did. But at that point, nah, man, I just wanted to keep pushing, kind of like you were saying. Like, I have a book that as I was starting to lose my ability to use my hands and, you know, my motor skills, the only way I could communicate once they put the life support in my chest with my mother was to write in this book. And you can tell from when you first open it, you can see where I'm writing perfectly fine. As you turn the pages, it fades and it gets a little more dark. Like, God, please take me home. And, you know, if this passes, I'll do, you know what I mean? It's like, it gets pretty dark, man. It gets really, like, you can see what was going on in my mind. And I wanted to die. Damn. I did want to die at a certain point. But then it started getting more hopeful. And then the lines went flat and then the pages are empty. You see what I'm saying? So, and I still have that book to this day.
I think it's cool, though. It's really good to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in, like, journaling and writing down, like, what you're thinking or feeling that day. And it's one thing if, like, you're looking through every page and it's dark, like, man, okay, you need some help. Right. But for you, it's cool because you had that, you know, you had the beginning moment, then you had that dip of darkness. But then you get to see the journey. You can reflect on that, man, and be like, man, look at all these stages I went through.
Right. And I'll tell you something that was crazy. Out of all the things that you might think someone was concerned with, one of the things that bothered me the most once I became comfortable with the current state was a KFC commercial and a sweet tea, because I couldn't drink. You know what I mean? They had to wet my tongue to keep it, all that stuff, and I had the life support. And anytime anyone would come in with, like, a cold drink that was, like, sweating and dripping, it would just drive me crazy.
You're like, I want that so bad.
I want that so bad. You know what I mean? That I actually mentioned that in the book. It was like, I want sweet tea. Can we go to the beach? You know what I mean? So there was some positivity in it.
Hell yeah, man. And now you can have all the KFC you want.
You know what I'm saying? All the sweet tea and beach trips. I like where you're going. Just I like, you've already touched on things that I haven't spoken on before. So I like the direction we're moving, because, you know, you don't want to tell the same story over and over again.
No, you don't.
Yeah. So if there's different little Easter eggs from the story, that's a different story.
Hell yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, for sure. Good. That's good feedback. Then you're kind of describing, you know, that moment you ran into this girl from high school, correct? And you were just really, you know, you had an issue with your self-image at the time. I think it was just, you know, people are judging you. You know, you're aware of that. They don't know your story. And it's weird if you just go up and be like, this is what just happened to me. You know, they'd be like, whoa, maybe this person is on drugs. But, you know, you've just been through a really raw, tough thing. And so anyone unaware of that, I could see where they'd probably misjudge. We all do.
Right.
You know, and so that was probably a tough place for you to be in. So what does that like rebuild look like? You know, going into your new identity, you had described at one point kind of going towards self-destruction too.
And that was later on.
That was later on.
After this, yeah. But,
okay.
So the thing about rebuilding, something very interesting about that, my grandfather, who was Edward, that's where that was my middle name, but I've adopted that as my first name.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a good name.
Adult. Thank you. And it's but that was his name. And after they let me out of ICU, stepped down in the rehabilitation unit and all that stuff, and I was able to go home, my mother had to go to work, and, you know, everybody had to do their thing. But my grandfather, he had, I think it was emphysema. He had emphysema, and he would have therapists come there, like physical therapists, every day to work on him. And I would have my physical therapist every day come to work on me. And he was 71 and I was 17. And it was crazy because we both knew I was on my way to being renewed and he was on his way to, you know, to dying, unfortunately.
Yeah. On to the next journey. Yeah.
The irony of 17 and 71, and this is the chance when we got to be closest. I heard all his World War II stories and got all his advice and perspectives and, you know, kind of took them to my heart, and then adopted the name Edward as my first name when I lost him.
Damn.
You know, so that was also an interesting part of my transformation, I would say.
Were y'all pretty close?
He was always like a great grandfather, not a great grandfather, regular grandfather. He was an incredible grandfather, but I didn't spend a lot of time with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's when I got to know him as somewhat of a man. I wasn't quite a man yet, you know what I mean? But I was on my way, and it was a point where I could understand him better.
Yeah, that's really cool. And he passed off some insight from his life experience, you know, 70 plus years of experience for you to take on.
Right.
Yeah. What is something you think, if you could think on it, what is something he gave you in that moment?
Man, honestly, the tenacity and like the bit, like what he went through in the war, you know what I mean? He had to sit in a foxhole and had, what do you call it, frostbite, and just had to stay in there until they could come rescue him, you know what I mean? And just kind of like knowing to stick through whatever, you know, endure. Yeah. Endurance, you know what I mean? Endure it. It might hurt. It might be difficult. It might be lonely. Yeah. But endure it.
Yeah,
be
man.
Consistent. You know what I mean?
God, I love that, man. That's such a powerful lesson too. And that'll get you through so much. I mean, you think of past generations, we're seeing a lot today with the mental health side of things. Like they didn't really do a lot of that, but there's something to be said about their toughness and those traits.
Right.
So applying that and embracing that mindset or those different lessons, but also working on your mental shit and not burying it up, like bridging those two things together can make you like the ultimate man. That's how I look at it, man. Kind of like masculinity. There's two faces to it. You have to be the whole piece, right?
You got to be well-rounded. Yeah, it's all about balance, back to balance, night and day.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, man. So you got to get that time in with him. Right. Okay, so how long were you in this recovery period, like going through physical therapy?
About 3 months.
3 months?
About 3 months. So we spent that whole time together every day.
Yeah.
You know, it was like we were Sallies or war buddies or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm visualizing in my head.
Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah, man. I remember doing my physical therapy, man, and that shit was rough.
Yeah, dude.
I remember being in tears just trying to stand up and down out of a chair. Like just the simplest thing. And I was just like, God, this hurts, dude.
Right.
But
you push through.
You push through.
And that's why you are where you are today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Likewise, man. Like, look at you, dude. You're crushing it. So after that, after that 3 months, you're back out in the world eventually. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Let's take us down that journey.
So right after that, I mean, when I was coming back to being able to speak and things like that, like I spent a lot of time. I mean,
you had to do like
completely paralyzed. When I say that, I mean, couldn't speak, couldn't convey any thoughts, but I will say that from the point I stopped being able to write in the book, it's like telepathy picked up from my mother. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like she could, I mean, man, she knew everything I needed all the time, just if I would think it. You know what I mean? And there is that motherly instinct, of course. But there was even one point when the doctor was going to give me some kind of heart medicine. I can't remember what it was or anything like that. And she just had this freak out. Was like telling them, nah. She was like not letting them give it to me.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, we need to give it to him. She just lost it. And I mean, I guess because she was my parent, she could tell him no. And it turned out the doctor came back and done his research and found out based on having Guillain-Barré, it could have gave me a stroke.
Gosh.
Now, she didn't have any information on that. Didn't, you know, I don't think there was Google back then, but she didn't have any way to check. You know what I mean? She just had intuition.
Yeah.
You know, and it worked. It was crazy.
You know, mothers tend to worry, you know, and like my mom has done it. And at points in my life, it's been frustrating. It's like, Mom, I'm good. But I have a daughter, so I get it, you know, like I look at her and I'm like, I'm going to be, it's just kind of part of it. Right? So you appreciate that, man. And it's a good thing that she did have that intuitive thought. Are you still close to your parents?
So my mother passed away it'll be 3 years ago, the 25th of this month.
Damn. Were y'all close?
Man, we were so close that I still to this day have not genuinely cried since she passed. And I was holding her hand when she passed. You know what I mean? I felt her leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I actually, my fiance found a place that would allow me to be present during her cremation. Wow. You know, I did my version of a ceremony, me and my father alone with her. We put her in her favorite jean jacket. And it was interesting because I covered her body with rose petals and mushrooms. You know, from the waist down. She took her mushrooms as well.
Bro, beautiful.
Yeah, and I put that on there, and then I said my piece, and I said things that came to me, and I asked the gentleman in the room if they could give us like 5 minutes, the guys who actually do the cremation. Yeah. He said absolutely. He walked out. I did my whole thing, me and my pops, and before we went to pick her up, a little brush. She did art, like she did photography and would make coasters and just cool stuff, you know. And the brush that she would use for the clear coat, the final touches, fell out of her jean jacket, like the final touch. You know what I mean? And when the guy came back in, he told me, he said, I've been doing this over 40 years, and I've never seen anyone ever do anything like that, ever. Yeah. He said that was beautiful. And I said, well, today, if you could just sit back and me and my father will put her in there. You know what I mean? You guys don't have to do much. So we picked her. I just decided, you know, she brought me in. She cared for me. She honed me. She sculpted and molded me throughout my life, you know, gave me the character traits that I have today and the perspectives that I have. And I felt like when I lost her, I absorbed even more of her goodness. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's like, it was my duty to see her all the way home. And when me and my father picked her up and we put her in the thing, and I don't even know what you call it, crematory or cremation machine or something. Yeah. We put her in there, and the guy came up and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, would you like to push the button? And I said, absolutely. So me and my father together pushed the button to cremate her. And what I realized was, you know, I didn't know this at the time, but I had put a stone that I found from the Valley of the Queens in Egypt. I found it when I was there. I put that stone in her pocket along with a quartz crystal and a selenite crystal. It's just an interest we shared. Yeah. And I didn't know that the temperature that it takes to cremate a human body isn't hot enough to melt those stones. So when I got her ashes back, I also got the crystals and the stone from the Valley of the Queens in the ashes. Dang. Which was really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely, man. I don't know if I've shared that whole thing publicly at all. You know what I mean?
Well, you mind if I ask you a question? If you could say something to her right now, what would you say?
I would thank her for believing in me, always having my back, instilling me with the traits that she instilled me with, the peace, the calmness, you know, allowing me to absorb her character and reminding me to be creative. And, you know, because of the strength of our bond is why I didn't cry. I went to the forest and I shaved my head and I screamed on my knees just to get out any emotions that may be trapped. But we had such a beautiful, beautiful relationship. I don't have any regrets. And man, I couldn't be more thankful because I'm not going to say I didn't do that on purpose, but I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? I didn't know any better to nurture that because I didn't expect to lose her so soon. Yeah. You know, so it just kind of came it just kind of came secondhand, man. But I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah, man.
She was like a sister, a mother, a daughter. You know what I mean? We played all these different roles throughout our life.
Yeah.
You know?
That's beautiful.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's interesting you bringing that up. You know, I think about my parents and I love them, man, you know, but they are getting older, you know, and I want to, and here I am trying to build a business, build a future for my family. It's something I really am hard on myself about because I want to like spend so much time with them and like, it's just, you know, it's life. Right.
Right.
And I know they love me and they support me. They're my biggest fans. And I know that without a doubt. And I am very close to them. But a guest on my last episode or that just came out, you know, he was real close with his father. He's like, you know, you kind of wish you would have spent more time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think everybody wishes that, you know, but we have life, right. You know, yeah, you can't just dedicate it to one person or these people. You've got to like pursue things, but you've got to be intentional about those relationships. But he said, you know, sometimes you just don't miss people till they're gone, you know,
right.
And that's something that's stuck in the back of my head.
Right.
You know, reflecting about my parents. I reflect on all these conversations pretty deeply, man. I do all the production. So I spend
you hear it on repeat.
Oh yeah, dude. I spend some time, man. There's been some of these things, man. I've been sitting there like editing and I'll end up in tears.
Right.
Because sitting alone with it hits a little bit different too.
Absolutely. When
you hear people's experiences and those real raw, beautiful things like you just shared. Mm-hmm. So again, thank you for that, man.
Yeah, of course, man.
So yeah, you're rebuilding, you're going through all this physical therapy. You got through that. I forget what set us on that subject, talking about your mother, but do you remember from there?
I don't recall, but I know that I think it might have been the book.
Yeah, you're learning how to talk too.
Yeah, so almost like the telepathic vibe of her being able to, you know what it is I needed. I mean, man, like with Guillain-Barré, this minute you may need 5 blankets on you because you're freezing cold, and then the next minute you need all the blankets off, and somebody's got to rub ice all over your body, and you got a washcloth over your junk just to make sure that you know you're covered up or whatever. But they have to wipe you with ice because you're so hot, or so extremely cold. You know what I mean? And what was the point I was getting at with Guillain-Barré? But after that, I had to come back to Nashville and go to school, and I couldn't walk to my classes in time. So they had to make special allowances to be able to, you know, I did homeschool for a while, and then they had to do special allowances to get me to class a little after the fact. And going into school, being that thin again was another like, damn, what happened to you? You know what I mean? And not, you know, my face was like this, like I couldn't make any expressions at all. It was crazy. Did
people treat you a certain way, or was it?
Nah, everybody was, you know, people understood, and thankfully people were cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They kind of like looked out for you in a way.
Yeah, I didn't get mistreated at all, but I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, 100%. So this is probably the end of high school, right? This is your junior, senior year? Mm-hmm. And how long did it take you to make what you'd say a full recovery?
It took many, many years. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, many years. I mean, you know, and I guess that depends on what it is you're referring to. You know what I mean? Like at first, like to walk again, I mean, I got back pretty good within 6-8 months. You know what I mean? But to this day, my face doesn't operate the same. You know what I mean? Someone might not know that because they didn't know me prior, but I know. You know what I mean? In the synkinesis, I can see when the synkinesis happens. And they're not bad things at all. It's just change.
Yeah.
But it's different. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But so anyway, to rehabilitate, like basically they said at one point that I would always be weaker and have less tolerance and have to rest more frequently and, you know, stop doing strenuous activities than someone the same age, same weight, you know, pound for pound the same as me.
Yeah.
And I ended up like kind of that hit me in a strange place mentally. And I made it a point to let that not be the case. You know what I mean? And went super, super hard in everything I do. Yeah. Almost too hard. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
Like, it's like I want to go back and tell the doctor, like, we might want to reconsider that advice next time. You know what I mean? Because I took that to heart and made it be what fueled me.
Yeah.
And it still does to this day.
I love that, dude. Like your relentless pursuit, man.
That's right.
That's what it's all about.
That's right.
What do you think was the biggest like gold nugget from that entire experience? But outside of, you know, endurance, because I think that's an important thing right there, and that's a huge one. But outside of that, what was your biggest like that gold nugget that really sticks out?
Being trapped in my body, in my mind, was just it was humbling. You know, it was scary, and it gave you time to really think whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got in my mind, and I think I realized a lot more than I realized at the time. You know what I mean? And I think I carry some of those lessons that I might have locked away till today. It's almost like they're being unlocked as I'm ready for them. You know what I mean?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Being, as you know, you've had a very similar path. It's like being trapped in that state, man, can do a lot to your mind. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And make you change forever. I mean, here I am over 25 years later. You know what I mean? And I'm still learning lessons from being trapped inside my body.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're extremely limited, I that's the same thing has happened to me, man. Like, you know, after my wreck, I mean, it's because you maybe, I don't know if maybe you get where I'm coming from, that when you overcame it, right, and you're in like a better place, you're walking, I'm sure everybody's just like, man, so proud of you, you know. It kind of boosts your ego a little bit. You're like, man, I can overcome anything. And that mindset kind of sticks, especially when you're younger. Like me going through what I did, like everybody's like, Joe, you're a superhero. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to build this brand, Relentless Pursuit. Yeah, I got this apparel, all these athletes. And it was a totally different thing. You know, I had some money from a settlement, and I was just able to take off with that, right? And then it wasn't until like a couple years after I started all that I like, you know, lost my house and, you know, financially got wiped out. I had to take ownership, right? Like I led my path. Like I took the steps towards that direction, but I had to get to a point to where I had to solely depend on myself outside of my wife and daughter. Right. But I just fell on my back, man. I was in a really crazy, it started a few years ago, and I had to really see what I was made of,
right?
You know, without everybody else. You know, it's like, okay, it's cool when everybody's rooting you on, but when a lot of people turn their back on you, like, what are you made of, man?
That's right.
And that's when I started unlocking all the other lessons from that experience. And I didn't realize it for a couple of years, but then when things got really hard, when I got humbled to such a degree, that's when it was like, oh, I get it. Like,
I like how you put that.
Yeah.
That was dope.
I appreciate that. It just came to me, man.
Yeah. Best stuff does.
Yeah, it does, man.
That's creativity in motion.
Yeah, it is. It really is, man. And so, yeah, that's just, you probably get that though, man. Just as new experiences have happened, like we'll get to, I'm sure you've had some humbling experiences. You probably like can reflect on that time and how it connects to what you went through.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely.
So going for you coming out of high school, right? What was life like for you then? Like, what did you want to pursue? What did you want to become? Did you have any idea? Like, were you growing up? Did you say, I want to become an artist or an architect, or what was it?
This was the point, the graffiti writer era. You know what I mean? And again, everything I did, I took it very serious, and I somehow always had like some incredible mentor from that field. Whether it was the magic, I had like the top guy in the city made me his assistant and was my teacher. And then when I got into the graffiti, AM7 adopted me, and interesting, when I came out of Guillain-Barré, I would come back to Nashville and do graffiti. Yeah. And there was a guy named Revoke, who was a really good friend of mine, and he's world famous right now, like fine artist. He's incredible.
Really?
If you ever get a chance, look him up. Yeah, Revoke. Okay. And back then we were bombing together. And bombing is like, for those who don't know, is like, you know, going and painting the town, literally. You know what I mean? So, and Revoke was one of those guys that everybody in town, all the writers wanted to paint with him because he was the man. But we were in a crew together, and he would push me up billboards. You know what I mean? Like, I could barely walk. I'm back walking. I can definitely walk. Yeah. But, you know, I'm trying to climb a billboard ladder so we can get up there and do our piece, right?
Probably getting exhausted and like fast too.
But I mean, I literally almost can't. And this dude was a kind of bigger dude like you know what I mean? Like, and he would just kind of like put me above him, and man, he's pushing me up the billboard. And I think he liked the challenge of like getting somebody who can't walk up on the billboard to paint. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that was just an interesting time. That's like, people have my back. You know what I mean? Like, like that's a great example of someone having my back.
For sure. Like not letting you fall to the ground. Yeah. It's like life or death.
Right.
What do you, looking back on it, what do you think graffiti represented to you?
self-expression, art. You know, I come from long before business. I went to a magnet school for theater arts.
Okay.
I went to a magnet school for visual arts, was in the governor's school for the arts. My mother was a photographer. My whole background is visual arts.
Yeah.
So at that point, my idea was like being, I don't know, man, the only thing I was concerned with was graffiti and murals and painting and, you know what I mean, canvases and art. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was at that point.
Yeah. I'm curious to know your thoughts, you know, looking today with art of AI.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that in the creative space?
I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, it's hard to reprimand someone who maybe has a newfound creative outlet, who couldn't draw, couldn't paint, or couldn't do these things, and now all of a sudden they are fulfilled by the ability to create something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there is that side. But how do I feel in my heart as a creative? I feel threatened. You know what I mean? I feel that the human creativity is at risk, high risk. You know what I mean? And I mean, once you have an oversaturation of anything, then you lose value.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Things are valuable because they're held in high regard or they're rare, right?
Yeah.
And I think we lose that. Like, I did a cover, and I mean, it wasn't the illest piece of art ever done on the planet or anything, but I did this cover for J. Michael Phillips and Yelawolf album, Whiskey and Roses. And I took a little LSD.
Yeah.
And I laid rose petals in the shape of a skull. And man, I stood there for about 3 hours moving these rose petals like I was playing chess.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, you move one or you breathe the wrong way and the whole skull blows away. The whole piece of art. You know what I mean?
And it's got to be perfect.
It's got to be perfect. Yeah. And I'm sitting there as a human doing this and enjoying the process, and it's therapy. And then when the first person was like, wow, is that AI? And it was just summed up to, you know, and it wasn't the end of the world. I laughed it off. But at the end of the day, that's just the beginning stages. You know what I mean? Of the lack of appreciation of someone's creation or someone's time, someone's therapy. And, you know, whether that's good or bad, I guess that's hard to quantify at this point in time. You know what I mean?
Whether they're, because, you know, it sucks because initially, like, we're at a point where people are always questioning everything they see. Mm-hmm. Is this real or fake? And, then, you know, it's hard not to take it personal as a creative person, as an artist, because you're like, man, I poured so much time and energy, like literal blood, sweat, and tears into that. Mm-hmm. You're going to think it's fake.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for a lot of people in that space, but I think it's also an opportunity. Mm-hmm. You know, I look at there's a book I recently read called The Obstacle is the Way, right? Mm-hmm. So finding the opportunity in everything, mm-hmm. right? So I'm currently looking for that. Like, I'm going to keep, you know, with my show, it's like authenticity is key, right? Like, this is real human, raw connection, deep conversations. Like, it's going to be a light in the more artificial things get. Right. That's like a big thing to me. That's why it's so important. And people are going to want that. Mm-hmm. Like, in that scarcity, people are going to be looking for those gems. So I think there's something there. It's just hard to see, man.
Well, there's something like the collective consciousness, right, of all humankind. You know what I mean? If there's a whole lot of war going on and everybody's stressed, and I'm sitting out in the woods, I can still feel it in my heart.
Oh, dude.
Because I'm calibrated to the rest of the humans, just like you are and everybody else is. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know where I was going with this AI thing, but it's like everything is AI. You look at your algorithm and everything is, I don't even mean like it is AI. I mean, it's telling you about AI and how to use it. You know what I mean? It's the new thing. And it's like, again, I think as a tool, it's great. As a crutch, it's dangerous.
You hit on something I'm big on, is that human consciousness, that collective energy. Mm-hmm. Man, that's something that is always on my mind, because you get on social media and, you know, whatever. So you got religious folks, right? They're like, we're doomed. This is the end times. And I'm like, guys, quit feeding that.
Right.
It's going to be more doomed the more you talk about it, the more you highlight it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, let's take the focus away from that. If that's the case, right? I mean, then why sit there and obsess over it?
Right.
Like, why don't we bring light to the world and like create beautiful things while we can?
Right.
But it's just like, there's this collective energy of focusing on this. And I think the more people focus on it, you know, it goes back to the Bible, right? It's like when two or more gather in your name, and in prayer, there's that much more power. So when you got millions of people basically not necessarily praying this to existence, but believing in it. Because when you
Focusing,
pray, you do believe. Yeah,
concentrating.
exactly. Like there's something to be said about that.
100%.
And here I am. I'm just this dude out here in Nashville, you know, in Tennessee, trying to like shed light. Like, hey, man, let's re-gear our focus, right?
Right.
Let's focus on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you actually shift the whole narrative. How we do that, I don't know. I guess we just got to keep trying, man.
Well, the more I become infatuated by nature, and I would like to believe in tune with nature. You know, I've got that property, and man, I spend so much time out in the woods, and just, you know, I'm not a hippie or nothing like that, and even if I was, it'd be okay. You know what I mean? But that's not what I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm just on this like path of like true peace, you know, and avoiding self-destruction, because, you know, there's a lot of things in the entertainment business, man. It's easy to be consumed. You know what I mean? It's easy to fall into certain traps and fall victim to certain vices. You know what I mean? And they say, you know, people sell their soul when they sign this or sign that or do this, do that. I think you sell your soul when you allow those claws to get in your skin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think as long as you guard against that, you're safe.
Yeah. And that's why I like having some kind of spiritual connection with whatever God is to you, like a power, but like really working on that. It doesn't have, I'm a firm believer, it doesn't have to be just one way.
100%.
But if you're truly connected to God, that's where I think that's such an important piece of it, is like really focus on your connection with what God is, have that spiritual connection, because that's going to give you that discernment to whether or not you need to take that step in that direction. Right. You know, that'll keep you from getting the claws dug into your skin.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And falling victim to, you know, the ways that just come with the walk. You know what I mean? The things that everyone before you has done. It's kept them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Able to function and swim with the sharks. I swim with the sharks and I go back to the forest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And recharge.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't turn into the shark.
Yes.
You know?
I love that. I'm sure my daughter is going to be going to church and people are going to try to like tell her things. But at the end of the day, like, I don't really worry about it, because I know what I tell her every night. I know how much love I show her unconditionally. And she's going to be able to differentiate and make her own choices. And that's what I want it to come down to. Like, follow your path.
I'll say one last thing on that is I swear to God, I believe that nothing can become, what do you call it? Like, nothing can dominate over what you're telling her as a 3-year-old in the, you know, on her bed or whatever, the things you're telling her. Yeah. Nothing will ever surpass that, at least from my experience with my mother. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, I agree. It's the simplest things, man, tend to have, like we talked about earlier, like tend to have the biggest impact. Mm-hmm. But like, I have nothing to worry about if I'm intentional with just those little moments.
That's right.
Every single day. Exactly.
No, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
That's what's powerful.
Yeah. And I'm stoked about it, man. So and it makes me really proud to, like, I want time to pause often, but I'm really stoked to see who she becomes. Right. It'll be awesome to witness, man. Yeah, and I think
excited.
Fucking pumped up, dude.
Hell yeah, dude.
You got me fired up, bro.
Let's go.
Yeah. Given that art is such a big part of your life, and graffiti especially, yeah, what did it represent to you at the time, and what does it represent to you now?
At the time, I mean, art has always been self-expression, and for me, therapy.
Yeah.
Right. And graffiti was, you know, when you get in the stage of a teen, you start to become rebellious. You know, you want to try things, test things, and be known. You know what I mean? And that was our way from where I grew up. A lot of people were skaters. A lot of people were b-boys. You know, would break dance at Southern Fried Funk off Church Street way back in the day. And graffiti was a kind of like a outlaw. You know what I mean? At that point in time, like all day scoping the spots, whether it's freeway signs or billboards, or I was always like the extreme, like climbing the highest freeway sign, or, you know, doing the biggest top to bottom piece on a freight train. You know what I mean? I wasn't like run out and do something quick. I was extreme. Yeah. So for me, it represented self-expression, you know what I mean? And just kind of like going against the grain, you know what I mean? Like
some freedom, rebellion.
Yeah. And like putting your name. There was a thing back then, and I'm sure it is still now. I'm just out of the loop, but it was called like being all city. You know what I mean? And it started in New York, where your name was just everywhere in all the boroughs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was important to me to be all city. You know what I mean? Like top to bottom, everywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's where that came from. And what does it mean to me now? I think it's about coming back home. Again, the hero's journey, right? And I recently learned that that's supposed to be the case. And it's like, man, it's so true. Because I went down this like acidic path of only business because I was good at it. I can multitask. I'm good with people. You know what I mean? I get along well with people. I understand different personalities and how to navigate them. So I was good at business, but it became very acidic when I abandoned creativity completely.
It became your identity?
It became my identity. And I was this businessman, right? And then my mother used to just, I mean, man, she said it so much. I'd be like, I hear you, Mom, but I'm good at, you know. And then as, you know, her life was coming to an end, you know, in the last year and a half, 2 years, I started to listen to her and say, you're right, I do need to remember to be creative. And I was shooting photography. So I put out this photography book with my partner, Crowe, and Yelawolf, and Esteban Ordeal. And I just started embracing creativity, man, at every level. You know what I mean? Anything that I wanted to be creative, I was just going to give myself permission to do so. You know what I mean? And that's the biggest gift and the smartest thing I've done for my mental health in the last 20 years.
Yeah, absent of that, those things, you lose yourself.
You lose yourself when you don't have self-expression and the ability to be you.
Yeah.
You lose yourself. And it's like, I've come back home. I'm where I was as a child right now. I don't know that I could feel any better. I feel incredible.
I love that, man. Do you play any music?
I don't, man. I don't play any music. I was a drummer when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in like band camp and all that type of stuff.
I didn't know if that was like part of that, you know, creativity too. I mean, I got into cello a couple of years ago, man, and that's my thing.
That's
you know,
dope.
And it's just not something when I first got into cello, like I took it, I was like, I got to practice every day for this amount of time. And I started to drift away from it because I made it like a chore.
Right.
You know, it was a checklist to do, but it's like, dude, I'm trying to build my business. So if I practice the cello twice this week, that's fine, man. I'm still doing it, and it still does something, right? I'm not trying to be like play for some symphony, you know what I'm saying? But like, it's just something that speaks to me so deeply that I have to do it, right? And it sounds like you've got a lot of different things that speak to you on that level that no one else can see,
right? That
keep you alive.
Well, sometimes it'll be, you know, photography. Sometimes I might paint something still, you know, and it's not about, is this going to be good? It's about the process. Am I enjoying the process? You know what I mean? Sometimes blowing the leaves off my trail for spring is creativity.
Yeah.
And that's the therapy I need.
Yeah, man.
That's what I like to be a proponent of. Creativity isn't just confined to painting, singing, this, that. You know what I mean? A dentist can be creative if he gets lost in the work and shapes the tooth like a sculptor.
This is creative to me.
Me too. Me too. I'm inspired being here with you. You know what I mean? The conversations we've had, even when the cameras get cut.
Yeah.
We'll just keep going, you know?
You just hold on to it, you know? But this is creative work. And that's part of why I've become so obsessed with it, man. There was something too, you know, before we moved forward, I had a friend that said to me, because all this clicked, he's, you know, an entrepreneur, he's been building his business for a long time. And I was talking to him one day, and he said, Joe, man, you know, those like going to those waterfalls and doing the mushroom stuff out in the woods. He said, don't stop doing that stuff. He said, because he said, always make time for that kind of crap. Because he said, at the end of the day, man, he said, honestly, outside of this, I don't know who I am. And it got lost somewhere along the way. And it was very insightful for him to say, maybe kind of sad.
Wow.
You know, like, damn, that's like heavy as hell to be able to say out loud.
Right.
And I often wonder about that, but that was such an impactful thing for him to say to me, because I was like, you know, he's right, man. Like, it can become all consuming. And then you get to this stage in your life where you've done all this stuff, but you're like, who the hell am I?
Right.
That's terrifying.
Right. And even sometimes you might not get to the point of the question, but it's in the back of your mind and you don't even know it's in the back of your mind. You know what I mean? It's like, I could be asking myself, who am I, but not even hear myself asking it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's something I say when I go into the woods. I say, within the symbol, in front of the fire, deep in the forest, I find my mind.
Yeah.
And the symbol being the crystals, you know, the quartz crystal above my mother's ashes.
Yeah.
And I put them in a triangle of protection. But yeah, man, the mushrooms, and another thing I'd like to share with you personally, I believe I've said this before, but when my mother passed, we couldn't get her to drink any calories or any, you know, the insured drinks or the protein drinks to try to keep weight on her. She was losing it rapidly and couldn't stomach anything. And I was definitely in denial, you know what I mean? I thought I could save her with this and that. And, you know, I was trying everything I possibly could and all the faith and, you know what I mean? It was just past the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the very last thing, I mean, this is the night she passed. I put a little bit, the dose that she would take every day. She started taking just a little bit of psilocybin every day.
Yeah.
Told me it gave her creativity back. Her attic all of a sudden turned into this creative space. It was all decorated and she was coloring photos. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
She found this side of herself again, right? But the very last words my mother said as a living human being, after I was able to tip her head back and pour the mushrooms with the turkey tail, psilocybin, and vitamin D and just a little bit of water. And it's the first thing that she actually consumed in over a week. And the last words she said as a human being were, "That's good." It's the very last thing she ever said. And from that moment on, I knew what my path was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oof. I want to dive into that path big time. Trying to decide whether, because that's such a beautiful way to go into it. But I know there's some things that have happened before you really dove into that, right? So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
But let's take it to, I want to still get to what led there. So briefly just take us through like what kind of led to that, man. You know, you're doing graffiti. This is after your recovery. You're doing all this stuff. Did you have aspirations of going to college or anything like that? Or
I actually went to Memphis College of Art for a little while.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. I went there for a little while. I went there for about a year. And I mean, man, I didn't really have a lot of money. So at that point, I was working all night at UPS and then getting up and trying to be in class all day, and I wasn't getting any sleep and, you know, whatever. And I couldn't do it too much longer. So I ended up leaving after the first year. But
that can kill your creativity too. Big time.
And also, I mean, that wasn't the only reason I left. There was a lot of like analytical stuff in the school where they were trying to figure out why Da Vinci painted this green and not blue. It just got a little too technical for me. I was like, man, give me a brush and let me go do my thing.
For sure, man.
But the mushrooms, I mean, I started off, I used to sell weed, you know, way back in the day. And one time I went to get some weed and the guy didn't have any. All he had was mushrooms. I learned real quick. My only intention was to sell them and make a profit, which you and I both know that ain't the move. You know what I mean? That's so far from what's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the time I didn't know it. I was just operating on that frequency.
Yeah.
And I learned real quick that wasn't the case. I had an experience, first experience I had, I've told this several times, but it's like an Indian goddess appeared in a portal in a bathroom after I got really sick. I ate a half an ounce, right? And I got really, really sick. First purge, saw this Indian goddess, and she let me know if I kind of walked towards it. She said, if you come here, you die there.
Yeah.
When I felt the fear, she vanished. And then the evolution of where I was that day to where I am today is just come in degrees and come with like integration and appreciation and respect. You know what I mean? I feel like entering into these journeys, I have like a secular prayer I say, and I'd actually like to send it to you and share it with you. I don't share it publicly, but it's it kind of revolves around rebirth, the idea of being reborn, not of flesh and bone, but psychologically, you know, your perspectives, your spirit, your understanding and your character and your appreciation and gratitude. And the ceremonies are still evolving. You know what I mean? Like I'm still adding components and figuring things out and having these epiphanies. And like I've got this specific spot on my land that is for the ceremonies. And as I mentioned to you before, the crystal and the fire and the mural and the, you know, I'm looking for when people come there to leave something behind. You know, it doesn't have to be something that cost them anything or something that belongs to them, man. It could be a prayer, it could be a blessing, it could be a stone, it could be anything. You know what I mean? It could scratch something in the wall, you know what I mean? Just something to show you were there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because these things to me, it isn't about fun and games. Sure, I feel rejuvenated, incredible, like a superhero aristocrat when I come back, you know what I mean? But it's more for me about maintaining being back home. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like keeping this childlike thing that I've been able to somehow get back to. I don't know how the hell I got back to it, man. There were so many devilish obstacles in the way. I don't know how I'm here, but I'm thankful.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, really just being intentional about it. You know, it's like when I tell people about it that maybe haven't done them, it's like, I'm not doing it just for fun. It's not like a party thing.
No.
Like there's a reason I'm doing it.
Right.
And I think at one point, you know, eliminating any expectations. I think going into it with an expectation is also going to slap you in the face.
Right.
Because like, you don't know what it's going to bring to you.
Right.
Right. Like you take it, and because like the time I told you I turned into a werewolf, I was like, all right, what am I going to have to work on tonight? You know, because the time before that I did a heavy one, I was crying. I was working through all this deep stuff. But then this situation was so different. You know, I'm running free through the woods, half naked. Right. And I did not expect that to happen.
Right.
That was the furthest from what I thought. I was like, dude, I'm going to be crying again, like working through this thing. And it's just kind of like gotten to the point just where like, dude, like whatever God brings to me through this is what the experience is meant to be. Does that make sense?
100%. I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I think, you know, to the mycelial network, you know, if you've seen Fantastic Fungi, one of the most recent, really good films about mushrooms and, you know, how they operate and things like that. We all know that the mycelial network below ground delivers nutrients, threats of danger.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like they call it the wood wide web. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It provides the forest with information and nutrients and protects the forest.
Yeah.
And I have this belief or suspicion, might be a better way to put it, because belief can be dangerous. But I have this suspicion that, you know, the same thing is going on within us. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
For instance, how I found the mushrooms in the first place. Like, I was just a knucklehead kid trying to make a profit, and somehow they found me. And then the land, you know, I was looking for a place to take mushrooms. But now I've found a place where when I'm not on mushrooms, I found my peace and my success and my happiness through searching for something for the mushroom.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's giving me my nutrients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I think that's a powerful way to look at it too. I haven't really thought about it that way.
Well, it brings a lot of opportunities too. Like, I was at Sunset Marquee 4 years ago, and somebody came to interview Yelawolf, and I was sitting down there with them having breakfast, waiting for them to come. And they arrive and they give me a mushroom tea drink. It was like functional mushrooms. Like, I don't know if it was turkey tail or cordyceps or something.
Yeah.
And I said something mushroom, and all of a sudden his head peeks over from the side of the other wall, and they said, "Did somebody say mushroom?" And this ends up being one of my friends for the last 5 years. That moment, we just, you know, he heard me say the word mushroom.
Yeah.
And then later that day, you know, we're hanging out, and he's another psychonaut, and, you know, heavy in the psychedelic community, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how that works. You know what I mean? It's like this network and frequency that brings us together. You know what I mean? I see me and you working on some shit in the future.
Yeah, dude. Like, likewise. I think it's pretty cool. But we got these similarities, and I think just having an open mind for new stuff too.
100%.
Right? I mean, it's tough when people are just like very surface level and they're guarded when it comes to anything like that that's uncomfortable.
Right.
It's just like, how are we even going to like move forward?
Right.
You know,
right.
You know, I don't think we're going to have many other conversations just because there is such a wall there. And I know I'm not holding one up,
right?
You know, but some people do hold such a wall up. But when you meet people that are like driven in the same kind of way, you know, to succeed in whatever capacity that is, but also very intentional about internal and spiritual growth and utilizing different tools in order to become the best version of yourself.
Right.
I think you really connect. And when those people like that come together for collaboration, you can create some powerful stuff.
Man, all the way. And that's when the creativity flows. That's when the magic happens. And you said something a minute ago that inspired me, like when you said the crying trip, and then the one where you felt powerful like a werewolf. It's like, I've noticed that I go to the mushrooms when I feel like they're saying, "Hey man, we need to talk." You know what I mean? And sometimes it's when I'm the most stressed. I mean, man, I might just be torn apart and somebody drives by and I'm like, "Oh, look at them hubcaps. I hate the way that car sounds." I'm like, "What am I doing? Why am I talking like this?"
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like the mushrooms like, "We got to talk." You know, figuratively speaking, because I don't have the vocabulary to say exactly what I'm trying to say.
It's like a calling.
It's a calling. So then it's like, you know, I've had them before, man, where it's almost like straight to the doctor. Like, you know, it's nothing, you know, it's like going in a dentist's office and they're about to pull a tooth. And it hurts that they're pulling a tooth, but I'm not mad at the dentist or the drive there. You know what I mean? Because He's just trying to get this out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I think about the mushroom the same way, you know, like bad trip.
Yeah.
Or are they just pulling my teeth? You know what I mean? And trying to get the cavity out.
I tell people all the time, like, it's funny you say that because people are like, I'm just afraid to have a bad trip. I'm like, there's no such thing.
Right.
You know?
And
like,
that might be what you benefit the most from, is what you're afraid of.
Yeah, that trip, that thing you're looking at negatively, just look at it as like, man, this is the mirror I need to see.
Right.
Right? Because when you fight it, your mind's going to go places it shouldn't.
Fighting is the worst thing to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know, and it's so crazy you talk about the calling or like it's speaking to you or tapping you on the shoulder, because I think about that time I was crying, right? Mm-hmm. I had someone that used to be a friend of mine that was like always trying to push me to do all these mushrooms. You need to do this. And it's like, dude, like chill, man. Mm-hmm. I do what you don't know what I need to do.
Right.
And, but then when the time came for where I did that first big trip, it's like, I just knew. I was like, dude, this is a really hard season. I was like, I'm going to go out to, the mountains, rent a cabin somewhere with a fire pit. And I'm just going to like go all in. Mm-hmm. And I didn't need anybody to tell me that. It's just like, I knew inside, like, bro, it's time to go and go deep and do some work. Mm-hmm. And like, it's crazy because I actually have a video, like probably an hour long of me just talking to my phone, just like smoking cigarettes, just like sitting by. Oh yeah. Just talking to myself, just like, like just emotional. And it's like, dude, this is a broken man. But like, right. I listened to it and I'm like, man, there's a lot of value there though, too. Like I was bleeding out some stuff,
right?
And it's pretty crazy. Yeah. But it is going to call you if you're just willing to listen instead of fighting it all the time.
Right.
How do you feel about, I do want to dive into some of like, some of the things you're involved with too, that also plays a part into this psilocybin journey you're on. How do you feel about other like medicines, I guess?
Like psychedelics or?
Yeah, like, ayahuasca and stuff like that. I
mean, so I went down a psychedelic path for a while. I was like a psychedelic advocate, and I would.
Did you have issues? Sorry to interrupt. Did you have issues with any like hard drugs?
No, not. The only issue I ever had with anything, like actual issue with a substance, would have been alcohol. And I was the worst, man. It wasn't and this isn't an excuse. This is just the case. But I wasn't a person who had to drink every day at all. I could go 2 weeks without drinking, but every single time I drank, there was going to be cops called, relationships ruined, things broken, cars wrecked, people cussed. It was just bad. It was all bad. I never got drunk and woke up and said, man, that was great.
Like a social alcoholic.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you call it or something? Like you just,
whatever.
When you did, you just go too far.
Every single time though. You know what I mean? It's like a switch flipped and I would, I'm a little dude, but I would be in there like trying to find the first person with a problem. You know what I mean? And that's not the way to be.
Yeah.
But and no one ever, I didn't get beat as a kid. I don't really have anything to blame it on, like no real trauma other than medical stuff. So I'm a believer in generational trauma. Maybe, and it could be way deeper, but maybe I'm experiencing the feelings my grandfather had from World War II.
Oh, I believe in that 100%.
Or something like that. Because every single time you introduce those spirits to my psyche, I'm looking to hurt a person. And I don't like that. That's not my real character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I stopped. I'm very much like you. Like, it was a half an ounce mushroom journey that made me stop doing that. And I don't have the taste anymore. When I drink, it's more to be a part of the circle. Like, oh, cool, we're having a glass of wine. Cheers. I have my glass and then I'll drive home.
Yeah.
But I don't have any desire. It's not, and I respect those who it is. You know what I mean? Let me be clear. But it isn't day by day for me. I don't need meetings. I don't need anything at all. I'm so clear on how bad that is for me now.
Yeah.
I don't need any help. You know what I mean? But the psychedelic stuff, I've been in the ayahuasca circles. I've tried them. It isn't really for me. You know what I mean? There's something about psilocybin. For a while, I thought it was. You know what I mean? I tried DMT. I tried ayahuasca. Of course, I've done my share of LSD, all these things. But they just didn't really resonate with me. You know what I mean? There's something about psilocybin that brings me home.
I'm with you on this.
For hell yeah.
Real. Like I 100% agree. Like ayahuasca, I did it and it just felt dark. Mm-hmm. I had like I don't know, it was like a demonic thing. I don't know. It did not feel right. The energy wasn't right.
Right.
And I'm good just like not to do it again.
Same. Yep,
like
same.
It just didn't, something about it, man. Like the experience, and I'm not knocking the people there or anything. It's just like,
right.
First of all, I don't know any of these people I'm with.
Right.
I don't know their intentions, and I'm in this closed room their energy's spinning around with mine. I just don't think that, like
I'm not a fan of that either, bro. I think these retreats, and again, I'm not knocking anybody. Hey, someone else might.
Yeah, some people have a lot of success and do powerful things, amazing things from it.
Right. And for me, it's more one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like if I'm taking someone out who's a friend, if I've never done it with them before and it's new to them, then I sit for them. And I won't talk to them. I won't look at them unless they desire conversation. Even when they say, wow, that's incredible, I'll agree. And then I'll keep quiet. You know what I mean? And mind my business. Keep the fire going and make sure they're safe. Now, past that, if they're an experienced psychonaut or, we'll go out together. But, I don't, psychedelics they're different.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think they carry a different energy with them. So I'm right there with you. Like I tell everybody, man, I'm like, I've done this, and this. Psilocybin is just like, I feel connected to it. Right. And I feel like there's a reason it's the OG too.
And to your point, like the energies, man, like I've heard it said when, they're putting all these people in one room and doing whatever it is, whether it's ayahuasca, psilocybin, whatever the case may be, sure, people used to commune and do that way back, but you would imagine that they would be tribes or people who lived together or lived in the same vicinity, not shipped in from all over the world, charge a bunch of money and put here to do this together real quick and then send home.
It's like when my brothers and I do it. Like we get out to the woods, we're there with a purpose, but we know each other's intention. Like we understand that energy is going to be shared. Like it's bigger than us. So yeah, it may be a bigger group of people, but we're all on the same wavelength.
But it's essentially like the tribe.
Yeah,
you're familiar with each other's energy. You're reoccurring characters in this journey.
Yeah.
And you know what to expect.
Yeah, I remember when I did the ayahuasca, just a quick point on this. I remember I was like, I'm going outside, dude. So I was like, I want to lay under the stars, man. I'm in the jungle. And they just, after a while, they were just like, come inside. You got to be inside. And they were like kind of trying to pull me inside. And I'm like, this is where I belong, guys. Like this, I want to look at this. Right. It was very strange to me, but I'm not saying everywhere's like that or they had bad intentions. I just know, I don't know, something in me is just like, I'm good on that. Yeah.
Well, there's something else to be said about, and I know you can relate to this, for the ayahuasca thing. I mean, yeah, I'm sure I could figure it out, but for the most part, I have to go to a shaman, you know what I mean, and deal with their prescription. But I feel, for lack of a better term, called by psilocybin to be the administrator or the facilitator, you know what I mean? And it's like, even if it's just for myself.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I don't need permission or a flight or a retreat, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I don't know anything about this person.
Right.
Like, or what makes them a shaman.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's probably a lot that aren't in it for the right reasons. Like that's just the way of the world. So it's like, I know nothing of this person's background or intention. So they're prescribing me something that's going to take me to another place. Like I understand trust, but at the same time, it's different when you're just like, go out there with intention by yourself.
100%.
And you're like, at the end of it, you're going to be okay.
Right.
You're going to wake up and be like, man, that was wild.
Right. And the calling is a lot like, the calling to me is a lot like creativity. I just thought about that. Like, creativity can't necessarily come like, all right, I'm going to call on you and 5 people. By the time I get to you, be creative. It can't really happen like that. It's just like the calling. Yeah. You know what I mean? The calling happens when it happens. It doesn't happen when you book a plane, saw an ad on Instagram. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen that way.
Like doing psilocybin is like a really powerful symbolism. Like if you think about fall, I always think about it like, okay, this is when nature, like a lot's dying. So I think internally that time of year represents things within you dying.
That's right.
Like, hey, this is a good time to think about like, what about yourself needs to die, but at the same time you're fertilizing the ground. Right. And then, the next season things start to grow, right? What's going to grow in this season of death? Right. What's going to grow from that? And, you probably get what I'm getting at. Like,
man, I mean, that was, I told you about the trip that I did not too long ago. I think it was February 22nd and it was 22 degrees outside. Maybe it was February something else, and I'm just getting them mixed up.
But it was cold all February.
It was 22 degrees is what I do know. And that was very evident. But I had a snowsuit on. I was out there by myself, and that was all about, it was 12 grams, and that was all about what you're saying, letting the old that no longer serves me die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then this spring equinox journey that is coming up on the 20th is all about the rebirth.
Yeah.
You know, all about the the rejuvenation.
You know, you might be able to help me because, I don't know, just at this place I'm at, and like of like fatherhood and like just being, you know, leading a family, right? I want to do another heavier trip, but I get in my head about it. I'm not gonna lie, I get super anxious because I go to this place of like thinking about my wife and daughter and like, you know what I'm saying? You get what I'm getting at?
Yeah, 100%.
It's like the same thing in the travel. You know, I went to California last year, and I was like, what if there's a nuke, you know, while I'm in California goes off, you know, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm stealing people's cars and I'm making my way back across like, you know, America to get to my family.
Back into that werewolf.
You know what I'm saying? Like just wild stuff. And, you know, it's a little bit anxiety because like they're my purpose, man. They're everything. So, you could probably help me break that frame.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing I would say is, you know, first of all, we'd let them know where you're going, and you'd come out. You know, if you came with me, you'd come out to the land, and we would go in the middle of the night. Like I usually like to start around 3 a.m.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's the quietest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything's locked. All electronics are put out. Phones are put in a locked box with a timer. Car keys are put in a locked box with a timer, and the house is locked, and you can't figure out how to get in. You know what I mean? So it's designed for you to stay outside until the sunrise.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bringing you from the dark into the light. I don't like to leave my space and come back into the house while it's still dark. I like to come after sunrise.
Yeah.
And I'll stand and
That's
allow
cool.
the sun to beam through the trees onto my head and kind of gaze at the sun. But to me, it's important to do it that way where you're in this familiar place, you know, all variables are covered and you're safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And your family knows, hey, for 7 hours, I'm going to be offline, but you'll be asleep anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
so if a nuke hits in the middle of the night, there's nothing you can do about it anyway.
That's the whole thing too. Like I can't do nothing about a nuke,
right.
You know, and that's just extreme thinking, man. I'm sure other people kind of get it, you know, because we want to be there for them in any kind of moment that they need you. Right. So again, this is just a different season of my life. So
Beautiful season though.
Yeah. It's the most important. You know what I'm saying? Hell, I'm just getting started. I'm in my prime,
Hell yeah.
You know?
Hell
So,
yeah.
I did want to ask you too, since we're on this, and we're going to circle back around to it. What do you think about those? Have you heard about those darkness retreats?
I have, and I'm interested. Like,
Same.
I mean, you know, I want to know.
There's like a call. I feel the call to do it.
I feel it big time.
Really?
And and the technology detoxes. Have you heard about all that?
No.
It's as simple as like you just commit to not utilizing any technology that's that's unnecessary, like I guess entertainment of any sort.
Oh yeah.
Like you unplug from it for a period, and I think you do that in the darkness retreats, at least some of them.
Yeah, from the one I looked into, it's like, you know, you're in there for a few days, just like in complete darkness, down like in like little underground cabin. Like
where is this at?
There's one in Oregon, man. I'll get you the link.
Yeah, I've been infatuated with the idea, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're like down there. I think they like rope food. Like there's a rope, you pull the food, but you can't see anything. And it sounds terrifying in a way. Like obviously it's like, damn, I'm going to be like trapped in the darkness for a few days. Like anybody in their right mind is like, yeah, that's intimidating. But at the same time, I think it's such a powerful thing. Like, okay, but that's the light within, like focusing on that. Like to me, I'm so fascinated by like what I gained from that experience though. Mm-hmm. No matter what it is, I think it's a really cool concept. So it's something I've already set a goal to try.
Well, I think it's going back home again. You know what I mean? Before we came here, we were in the darkness for way more than 3 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think there's something powerful about the reset that you would probably experience from that.
Yeah. And all these things we're talking about too, like they bring you home.
Right.
Like it forces you to go inward. Mm-hmm. So I think, that going back home thing, you know, you're onto something there because it's
become the theme for the day.
Yeah, it becomes, I'm going to be thinking about it going back home. I'm probably going to write a piece about that too.
Hell yeah, I want to hear it.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's take it back to, I do want to hit on a couple things. And I'd imagine you maybe talk more broadly about like the music stuff and everything you're involved with, but that is a part of your journey. So I do want to know, I'm having so much fun diving into all these other concepts. Like, we're probably going to have to record again one of these days, man, and just take off like hard on a few different things.
Right.
But I do want to know, like, what other things are you involved in? Like we talked about at the beginning, but what got you into the stuff, like the music? Obviously I know where the photography comes from. That's inspired generationally. Still.
So I'll tell you, the music, you know, we moved here because my father was a singer-songwriter, and I had no idea that I would ever take part in the industry at all. But I guess it was kind of, you know, in my mind from the move in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Watching him do his thing and then come into Music City. And I mean, you walk down Broadway, man, and the homeless people are some of the most talented musicians.
Jamming. Yeah.
They're killing, you know what I mean? And so it's like it kind of gets on you in Music City, I feel like, in a good way. You know what I mean? Like anything like that. And so at one point I opened up a studio called the Phoenix Room with a partner of mine named Hector. And it turned out to be a really popping little studio. It wasn't, you know, you've got studios in Nashville like Blackbird, and I mean, they're multi-million dollar studio where I think Thriller was mixed in the C Room. Like, you know, it's a level.
Dang.
You know, and then you got the guys in the basement. We were somewhere in between, you know what I mean? The Phoenix Room was like a spot downtown, but it wasn't the biggest studio in the world. But anyway, at a certain point, I thought I was an artist. You know, I was expressing creativity and doing music, you know what I mean? And experimenting with that.
What kind of music?
Hip hop. I was doing hip hop stuff, and I mean, we were doing shows, and we had different groups and solo stuff, and I mean, I was like really taking on that path real serious. But thank God, I had artists coming through who didn't really have means to record, who were better than me. You know what I mean? Clearly better than me, and I feel like I was always good at knowing when, all right, cool, I'm not going to be the greatest at this. Let me back down. I don't consider it quitting. I call it pivoting. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude.
Because it's like if I stayed in the lane, man, I love the idea of making music.
Yeah.
But then I linked back up through a photographer that I was managing. I linked back up with Yelawolf, who we were friends when we were kids. I met him when I was about 13.
Okay.
Through Graffiti, that type of thing. And some years went by, and then long story short, a photographer I managed was going to shoot him, and we were being paid to go to the shoot. I never assisted the photographer before, but that night, I guess whoever he had assist him wasn't available. He was like, will you go with me to see this Yelawolf guy? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I hadn't heard of him yet at that point. And I went and did my research and looked him up and saw him on the cover of Double XL with Eminem and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that dude looks like my friend. And he was like, man, get out of here, bro. And I was like, no, I mean, it looks like my brother, like somebody like I know really, really well.
Yeah.
And I went and looked at him on Wikipedia, and sure enough, it was my boy. And I was like, what the hell are the chances? So we go to this show at the Cannery. And again, he was being paid to be there. Had a Tennessean pass, was shooting him for the newspaper. So it wasn't like he was trying to, you know, a groupie trying to get in and get a picture or some shit.
Yeah, it was legit.
It was legit. But the venue was being not cool, and they were like, you can't get back there, and, you know, just giving us a bunch of shit. And I said, look, I'm not leaving until Yelawolf tells me to beat it. You know what I mean? I'm not going nowhere. And so I made my way back, and then a dude named Nathan Brown, who's a dear friend of mine for a very, very long time and an incredible visual artist in Nashville, he was at the door, and another really close friend of mine, Newport, was at the door, and they saw me, and they were like, yeah, he's cool. So they let me in.
Yeah.
I brought the photographer in, and then, man, I hadn't seen Wolf in, it's been probably 5 years, something like that. And I mean, he had blown up, and, you know, everybody wanted to holler at him.
Yeah.
And I walked in the room, and he put his arms out and was like, Ounce, where you been? That's what they called me. That was my graffiti name.
Yeah.
I was like, Ounce, where you been? And it was just nothing but love. And it could have went either way, man, and I wouldn't have been mad at him if he was like, who was that? You know, or whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been mad at him. I mean, where his mind was at and where he was at in the world. But he wasn't. He was very embracing and very supportive, and, man, we just started hanging out again, and at that point, he was living in Atlanta.
It probably meant a lot to him to see a familiar face from the past, too, like just unexpectedly.
Right.
You know, there's no such thing as coincidence.
That's right.
So
I agree.
Yeah, so it came full circle. Like, he was probably pumped to see you.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, and I went down to Atlanta to see him for another show. And when I got to his house, we had some drinks. And then it was probably the first time after that I went and linked up with him. And, man, later that night after the show, we got in this brawl, but it wasn't like a angry brawl. It was kind of like you were telling me about, like two wolves, you know what I mean? Like, man, we were throwing each other around the kitchen. The cabinets are breaking. People are falling over, but it was all love. It was like we needed that. You know what I mean? It was like the rekindling of the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's what we were like, all right, dude, you know, we need to hang more. So anyway, that happened. And then
It's brotherhood, baby.
Brotherhood, man. That's what and it was real brothers. You know what I mean? Not blood brothers, but the same thing. You know what I mean? And that grew and grew and grew. And we just hung out. And then one day at a car wash, I said, Wolf, I want to work with you. Because we did a song together. Let me backtrack. We did a song together, me, him, and Struggle. It was great. People liked it. Everything is awesome. But I realized I will never be the greatest, and my boy may. You know what I mean? Like, he's got the potential to be the greatest. And I hold him in the same regards as a damn Michael Jackson or Elvis Presley. Like, this dude is absolutely incredible and extremely talented. And I knew I could never be that. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to be the businessman. I would rather stand beside him as a team as opposed to like another guy down the street that he'll throw a bone to if he feels like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's work together. So that's where we started. And then we were at a car wash one day and we were just hanging out. And I had a paint company. And I was going to paint a karate dojo. And I was telling Wolf, I was like, I want to work with you. I know you're not hiring, but I'll start by walking the dogs, taking out the trash, very bottom. And then after time, you know, helping him with whatever the hell he had going on, some time went by and he was like, I need you to go to Detroit with me. I think it was for the Best Friend Eminem video. And I couldn't because I had to paint this dojo. And Wolf told me, he said, hey man, look, I want you to sell your van. I want you to sell your ladders, get rid of the paint company, work with me. He said, you never have to paint again.
Yeah.
I said, Wolf, this is a big, big move for me, bro. Like, if this doesn't work, like, I'm going to be, you know, in a tough spot. He said, sell the van, bro.
There's a lot of success in painting too. I mean, I got a couple friends that have paint companies, man.
Yeah, no, you can make a killing, but it was one of the moments when I believed him, and here we are. I don't even know how many years later, and we're still rock and rolling. You know what I mean?
That's so cool. Well, and the humility too. I think that's one thing to point out that I respect is that, you know, I've seen people, you know, you got Wolf, right? Like, you see this talent in him, not to say you aren't, but you see something in him and you're able to step back and be like, well, he belongs in like the limelight or whatever it is. Like, that's his lane. You can just tell.
Right. Right.
And rather than trying to compete with him or build up resentment, because I've seen people be resentful towards the person that's like maybe in this direction that they once wanted to be on. Mm-hmm. And then rather than standing beside them and like working together in the proper way, they either try to stab him in the back or they're just like, screw you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
it was more common than not.
100%. And so, and I've seen it in my own life and like, you know, but you were like, no, dude, I know where I can be the greatest asset, and you pivot. And I think the pivot is one of the most powerful things, man. Like being willing to pivot, because if you just keep trying to bust through every wall, mm-hmm. man, you're going to have a headache for a long time. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. Knowing what, like, I knew that I could be the greatest in the world at something else, like the greatest to ever do it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But that wasn't it. And I was cool with that. I was okay with my soul. You know what I mean? So I decided to pivot, and I'm so thankful I did.
That's really cool, man. Well, I appreciate that about you, because, like, you know, that's actually more, it's a little more rare than
you would think.
Yeah, than you would think. 100%, man. So, and it's obviously worked out to your benefit.
100%. Yeah.
So from there, like, where did things go?
After that, I mean, I started selling. Well, I started just doing whatever grunt work. You know what I mean? I told Wolf, I said, you don't even have to pay me. I know you're not hiring. I'm asking for something that you're not seeking. You know what I mean? So, and of course, I mean, being who he is and the character that he is, I mean, I would do some work. He would throw me some bread. We didn't quantify what that was. I didn't send invoices, but he would definitely make sure I was taken care of. You know what I mean? And then one day he came, was like, you want to go on tour? I was like, hell yeah, I want to go on tour. So he threw emptied all these boxes of hoodies and T-shirts he had printed and was like, I need you to sell the merch. It's not rocket science, but I mean, you know, there's a method to it. There's software you can use, and, you know, there's ways to keep up with the taxes and all this different stuff. He just dumped it on my feet, and I was like, all right, let's go. So we went out there, I started selling merch, and then did that for a couple tours. And then I'm trying to remember what came next. I believe it was tour photographer. He had a tour photographer, and then the guy couldn't make it. And I had stopped managing the other photographer, and I had traded a Cadillac what was it, a 1979 Cadillac Seville for a Canon 7D when my photographer I managed went on tour with Drake and McGill. Dang. Because I had to get these photos, right? And I was just doing it out of necessity. And so then this tour photographer quit. He was like, man, can you come? It was kind of like in a rush. Like I wasn't really qualified.
Did you really love that car?
I love the car. And the car is actually in Struggles video, Black Curtains. Me and Hell Rail are shooting a bunch of guys in this drive-by. You can see it in the video. It's pretty cool.
That's sick.
But that's the car that I traded for the Canon 7D.
Damn, that's a big move.
Yeah, man. And it was, I'm glad I did though, because then I went to be his tour photographer. That's what turned into the book I told you about, the 5150 tour book.
Yeah, I saw a glimpse of it.
Yeah,
that's pretty dope.
Thank you. And then I went on to be his tour manager. And again, that was, it was like, oh shit, we can't get a hold of this tour manager we like. And I had just always been like the helper to the guy. So I picked up how to do it. So I became his tour manager, managed several tours across the U.S., one overseas, right during COVID. That's when we came home. And then in Sweden in 2020, we signed a management agreement, and that was, 6 years ago. So I've been managing them for 6 years.
That's sick, dude.
Yeah, man.
That's a cool journey, man. And I think something that really sticks out to me is your ability to adapt. I don't know. I've seen it over the past few years. Like when I took on production of this, 80 episodes in, I had no idea how to operate the cameras or do any of this crap. And now I'm like producing other shows, and I've done documentaries and stuff like for corporate companies. And, it's because I had to learn to keep going.
Right.
And like the willingness to be able to just be like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And if you have the drive to do so, man, you can master things you never thought you would. Right. And you were just present, man. And you were like, oh, you need a manager? Yeah, I could fill that spot too. Right, and then things have just kind of curated to where you are now. And I think that's really cool.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, man. I just think, I don't know. I think a lot of people limit themselves out of fear.
Right.
But like, you just got to step into the fire.
Right. Fear can be debilitating or paralyzing. You know what I mean? It can make it difficult to move. But I'm a big fan. I got a feeling you're the same damn way. I'm a big fan of facing my fears head on, you know what I mean? Regardless of what that means, with all the courage I can muster up, because I always come out feeling so much more powerful.
Oh yeah. It's like the bare knuckle fight stuff I told you about, man. That's
intense.
When you're in the backwoods, man, and like farmland and like Floribama line area, and you got some dude coming out from like Biloxi or, somewhere in Alabama. You don't know anything about his background. You're squaring him up. It's intimidating, man. You're like, dude, what if he knocks me the hell out, bro?
Like, so you ain't had a chance to meet him yet or nothing?
No. You just know, like I showed up to a fight one time, and this guy's opponent didn't fight or didn't show up, and mine didn't. And my boy's like, hey, man, he trains. Like, he's consistent. He's like, you don't have to do it. And I thought about it for a second. I always think about things for a minute before I actually jump in. But I'm always game with like anything, really. Obviously not like some crazy hard drugs or nothing like that. Right, you know what I'm saying? Right. But with stuff like that, as like worst case, I get knocked out. But I still did it. I still stepped in the fire. I still learned something. Champ, bro. I'm still a champ, man. Like, because not many people are willing to do that with gloves, taking it easy. Right. And, got in there and won, right? And, but it's just, there's so much to be said about just stepping into that fire.
100%.
Because worst case, you're going to learn something valuable from it.
Right.
Yeah. So I appreciate that about you, man.
I always respected about people who step in the ring. I have an appreciation for that, man, for the exact reason that you said. You know what I mean? The fear that you're facing. And I think, given the normal variables, if you get in that damn ring or in that circle or square up, I mean, in my opinion, you're a champ already. You know what I mean? Whether you get knocked out or not, it's like you mustered that courage and you faced that fear.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that. And I really appreciate when I see fighters who can fight each other, you know what I mean? And then get up and hug or shake hands or, you know what I mean? And there's like a camaraderie that I really respect that. I think that's really sick.
That's typically how it always goes too. Yeah. My brother Brett, I mean, he's pro. He fought BKFC, some other different ones. Mm-hmm. Pro fighter, man. And he was my first bare knuckle fight,
Fought him?
Oh yeah. We were in kilts. It was 30 degrees out. We had fire around us and bare knuckle. And I was like, someone didn't show up, and it was for a ritual though. It was like the conclusion of it. And I was like, dude, I got to do it. He's like,
there's no rules, just straight. straight fist fight?
We go like old London prize rules, you know, old school pugilistic English boxing, like bare knuckle fighting. Yeah. So after I did it with him, one, I was so proud of myself for just doing it. Two, I was like, man, I feel so alive. It goes back to that power you said. Like, I just felt so powerful. And even moving forward in other situations with that, I think it becomes like a way of life too. Like, it translates like, okay, I throw myself in the fire to do this. Because he said, this isn't about me, but
no, I love it. Let's go. This is what we came for.
He said to me last time we got together for Ritual, he's like, Joe, you're like the most he said, you're the most game non-career fighter I've ever met. And like, that was a huge compliment. And I was like, bro.
Game meaning like wild and with it?
You're just down.
Fuck.
He's like, every time you step back and you think about it for a second, and then you're just like, all right, let's do this. And I'm like, man, if honestly, it just translates to like my life the past several years, you know, just, I have such big vision and dreams. I have to be willing to do that. Maybe not physically to get punched, but just in life in general.
Right.
So it correlates in its own way. It's very relatable. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just game for life. You know what I'm saying?
That's it, bro.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you come down sometime.
I gotta be careful fighting with you though.
Most of the time, I mean, we are gloved too. A lot of guys got to go home to, you know, families and stuff. It just depends on the event. But anyways,
right. No, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Yeah, man. And again, like the love you have for somebody you like, you know, you spill blood with. Absolutely. Afterward.
Yeah, that's
a really cool thing. You don't get that out of a bar fight.
Hell no.
It don't end like how you want it to, and then you're thinking about taking that guy out for weeks on end. You're like, man, I can't believe we were drunk, you know. But this is different, you know, and I think it's just so primal,
right? And
it's natural. It goes back to you and Yelawolf kind of, you know, wrestling around. Like, y'all kind of got into it, but it wasn't like that at the same time.
Yeah, no, it was love. It was like two dogs, you know what I mean? But it was, I mean, we were essentially fighting. Now, we weren't like punching each other in the face, but outside of that, you know what I mean?
You see two wolves going at it in a pack.
Right.
They're family.
Right.
But they'll rough each other up. You're like, damn, this is intense. But then they're still in the same pack moving forward, going after it's on the same pursuit. You know, they're hunting together at the end of the day. So that's what that made me think of. Outside of music, what I think it's cool though, you have a cigar company too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell us about tell us about Murder Cigars.
Yeah, so Murder Cigars took me about 2.5 years to find the right tobacco and, you know, get the branding right. And Cairo Wolf, partner of mine, I had the cigars that I finally picked out in the back seat. Was like, you want to go try these? And man, when I tell you we were at the gas station and getting something, and he looked at the cigar and he goes, oh shit, get back home quick. We get back home to his house and he designed the logo and everything in like 30 minutes. I mean, it just came to him, you know, so he's responsible for all of the branding and all that.
Yeah.
But Murder is, you know, it's essentially a group of crows. 3 or more is a murder of crows.
Yeah.
Called the box, you know, Murder. Also, I think it's interesting that
I didn't even think about that. That's cool.
Yeah. Back in the day, like when there would be a murder, detectives would show up, and I guess they didn't have the same technology or same cleanup crews or something now, but you see the old detectives smoking cigars in the murder scenes because of the smell. You know what I mean? Then I had a trip one time where right when we first started it, and I started it, man, like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not, you know, why would people buy my cigar? You know what I mean? And it all started when someone called me about a cigar for Yelawolf, and he was like, dude, I don't smoke cigars. You do. Let's do one for you. And I was like, Wolf, I hear you, but nobody's going to buy my cigar. And then I was leaving we got the cigar made. Took us about 2.5 years to get everything situated. And then we were going to launch the cigar at Smokin' O's Festival in Wilkes-Barre, PA. And it was interesting because I flew out a tour from California, had a layover in Chicago, and I'd been up all night getting my knees tattooed on the tour bus because I thought I was going to be able to sleep on a flight.
Yeah.
But they canceled the flight from Chicago to PA. And there was not another flight. I couldn't fly anywhere and lay over and get there by morning. It wasn't possible unless I chartered a jet.
Yeah.
The only option I had was rent a car and drive 13 hours from Chicago. And when I tell you, man, I hadn't slept. And it wasn't a wise move. I hadn't done any drugs. You know what I mean? I was just no sleep. Freshly tattooed knees. I got the rental car, jumped in, drove 13 hours to Pennsylvania. When I got there, they gave me a shot of tequila and a donut and said, put them cigars in the box. We got to get your tent set up. So that's what we did. We put the cigars in the thing. You know, I packed them myself because they had to ship them there in such a hurry to make it in time.
Yeah.
And man, you know, you figure no sleep, the ride there, I'm trying to stay awake, the windows down, the music's up, you know, I'm just trying to make it to the festival. I finally get there, and the whole time I'm thinking like, and one company had left a not so nice comment about, you know, us, me, Wolf, and J. Michael promoting it or something, and I was like, kind of had that plan in the back of my mind the whole drive there, and I'm like, am I wasting my time? Am I doing this? Is this a bad idea?
Yeah.
I get there, and when I tell you, man, everything that I thought they wouldn't like is what they loved. So basically everything that I thought that, I'm not going to say I thought, but I was concerned that they wouldn't like, you know, because the cigar industry is somewhat of like a, you know, it's a club essentially, you know what I mean?
Is it?
Like, I don't want to say like good old boys, because I think that more like Southern, but you know, you kind of got to prove yourself. You got to be authentic. And if you're not, you know, they'll laugh you out and band together and make sure that's the case. That's what, you know, I kind of thought we were up against. But at one point, I was tired, man. I was worn out from all this, but I was, you know, making sure I was putting on a good attitude and talking to the people to get the cigar sold. And a guy came up to me. He said, I'm the VP of sales from Monte Cristo. I've been hearing about Murder Cigars all day long. I wanted to come say hello. He said, I sell over 6 million cigars a year.
Yeah.
And he gave me his card. And I was just like, wow. But ever since then, we've started sponsoring Country Box. I don't know if you're familiar with that in Nashville.
No, I'm not.
So it's really awesome, man. It's they do boxing and then they have a country music act or whatever. But it's really, really sick.
That's pretty cool.
There's one on April 7th. If you're around, you know, come out. It's Plaza Mariachi off Nolensville Road. And Freeway Ricky Ross, the original Freeway Ricky Ross, is involved. Jimmy Adams is the promoter. He was under Don King.
Okay.
So I mean, it's really got a lot of dope history, a lot of really cool people involved, and Murder Cigar sponsors it.
That's sick, dude.
So we're in the ring corners, you know, we're everywhere.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
How long have you had this going?
The Murder Cigars?
Yeah.
Man, we're just over a year old.
Really?
Yeah.
So still new.
Last February is when we launched in Wilkes-Barre.
How has the growth been? Has it been a fun journey?
Like, it's been so much fun, and it's like people are really taking to it. People are really enjoying the cigar. You know, it's a quality cigar. It's not something that we pick quick. You know, we paid a lot of attention to the aesthetics, the bands, the embossing, the foil. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We wanted it to sit beside something classic like a Cohiba or Romeo and Julieta, and say, well, you know, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know any better.
Dude, I just had a cool idea. You know, the foiling with like that logo wrapped around it. You know what I'm saying?
Right there. Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah. There's some deep thought that went into that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, you know.
Yeah, just like the.
You know Ouroboros, right? Like the serpent bite. So it's a wolf version of that. I combined them because wolves are always in pursuit, right? They hunt, they eat, they repeat. So I wanted to tie the Ouroboros and the wolf together because the wolf has like some spiritual significance. And but what wolves represent, what they do, you know, they just keep they're relentless in their pursuit, in their hunt. So tying in this, it just represents this eternal pursuit that never ends.
That's dope. But the wolf head.
Yeah. So yeah,
you know, it's interesting too. They say that crows follow wolves and eat the scraps.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're gonna get something, you know,
right.
Because they're the best at what they do.
Right.
Going back to your cigar company. That's what sticks out to me about it is you just didn't come up with cigar and like a random name. Mm-hmm. I like the Murder Company? Murder Cigars?
Yeah.
I like that because the name's a little edgy. Mm-hmm. And like I listen to black metal music. Like I love black metal, like in death metal. Like so I like the edgier stuff anyways. Mm-hmm. But it's a little edgy, but then when you go to the meaning of it, in correlation with your name, like that's what really sells it to me because I'm big on symbolism and like what does that mean though? Like why did they come up with that? You've got me sold on wanting your, like if I went to a random place and I saw your cigars, I'd be interested, you know, like, oh, what Murder Cigars? Like that's a crazy name. And then if I looked into it, I'd be like, dude, I'm buying this one. Like I don't even care if it's any good or not. Like it's just badass because of what it represents. So I want to say like, yeah. That's badass. Proud of you, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it was interesting, too, because a lot of people at the festival that I wouldn't have expected, like police chiefs, would come up and be like, oh, my God, or, you know, whatever. I was a homicide detective, and, man, can I get one of those shirts? And I'm like, yeah, well, homicide, I get it. but I didn't think about it in advance. Then, you know, some gangsters come up and they're like, oh man, I want that murder tea. You know, it's like, it's kind of applying to everybody. It's really crazy. And then when they hear the story, they get it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's something to be said too. You know, you had all this self-doubt kind of because of maybe some things people said. And trust me, I've had people when I first, I mean, years ago, someone was like, it's not my fault you bit off more than you can chew. And I'm like, dude, I'm still chewing, you know, I'm getting this thing down, bro.
Exactly.
I'll never forget that comment. And I think it's good. You know, obviously I'm not doing anything to prove anything to anybody, but it's good to have some chips on your shoulder, 100%, you know, and it's good. Those things, they do, cause they do stack up, and it's a positive thing if you use it in the right way. But you were in your head thinking about all this negative stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man, are people going to like it? But you still showed up. And then the feeling you get from when you're surprised by the outcome, you're just like, yes, dude. It gives you a lot of hope too.
Right. And
then you're like, man, this is a bright future. Like that was a huge shift for you.
Right. And you know, the lack of sleep and the fear of driving in the man, I hadn't had any sleep. You know how that feels. I mean, especially as you're growing older, I mean, sleep becomes more important. And it's like, I'm really about to drive 13 hours and haven't had any sleep yet. And then I get there and man, I'm so just over it. I had to check myself and like get my attitude right on purpose before I walked in there because of the lack of sleep, the long drive, you know, all the things that happen along the way. But I felt like that was facing the fears, mustering the courage for the win. You know
yeah.
I mean?
And then you get in there and you're like, well, it's game time regardless.
Game time. And then we came out on top and everything was like 10 times more incredible than I would have ever expected.
That fires me up, man. What's ahead for this? You know, what kind of
just keep sponsoring dope stuff. Like I'm really enjoying the boxing thing, getting involved with Jimmy and Freeway and my partner and brother Tom Sturdivant has been instrumental in helping me with all this. And I like the boxing world, man. It's kind of new to me.
Yeah.
But I like being involved in that. So sponsoring fighters and moving forward with that, and just some other blends. Next, we have a wooden box on the way. It's our first wooden box. We were really, really, really probably the sexiest 4-pack box you'd ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like a high-end cigar, but it was a 4-pack cardboard box. You know what I mean? It was cut out in the front, and you know, it was beautiful. But we have to evolve now. But we had to start selling the 4-packs because no one knew who we were. You know what I mean? So we had to be able to spend the least amount of money on it to try it out. And now we're gaining more momentum.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the smart way to do it. You know, when I started apparel, my first shirt order was a lot of shirts, man. I was like, oh, God, yeah. I was like, all in, you know. And then it came in like a week before COVID started.
Damn.
And I was like, oh, God. You know?
Yeah.
It was like right when that tornado ripped through Nashville. That same year. Yeah. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. But then, you know, that had a lot of success in sales, and I'll eventually get back into that. It's just, you know, different seasons, things circle around if they're supposed to. But, you know, you went about it the smart way, but at the same time, man, like you're starting to see the value and you're starting to see that turnover a lot, man. I'm just excited because it is so new. I'm excited to see what's ahead for you and Murder Cigars. What else is ahead for you in your career or careers?
I mean, what I'm figuring out now is I'm stepping way more back into creativity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? While maintaining, like I'm very thankful, honored, and blessed to work with such incredible people and be a manager to some of the most creative geniuses that I've ever got the opportunity to meet.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm very thankful to do that. I'm going to continue on that path. I don't think I'm looking for any new artists probably ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just holding the ones that I represent now down, 10 toes down.
Yeah.
And doing everything I can to make them the best version of themselves. And past that is focusing on my creativity, which may take on many, many forms. And right now it's in the world of helping people through the psilocybin.
Yeah, it seems like you're very passionate about that.
I mean, I'm the most passionate above everything else. You know what I mean? And it's helping people. I mean, I brought people out there, man, who had nightmares for a long time, and their nightmares went away. I didn't ask them, hey, did your nightmares go away? They told me. I never knew that was a thing. You know what I mean? I've had just drastic. I had a guy come out there who was very suicidal. He never told me that till after the journey. But during the journey, he said that, you know, the spirit or whatever it was, or the mushroom or the entity or his own psyche, who knows? You know what I mean? I think it's important for me personally not to try to pinpoint what it is, because that's when you get lost in it. You know what I mean? It's more about like, I just accept it for what it is. If I'm experiencing self-improvement and being a better version of myself, who cares if it's inside or outside or real or not real? What difference does it make?
Yeah, it's still self-improvement.
It's still self-improvement. So he got to a point where the thought of his suicidal thoughts were crossing his mind. And he said the mushroom was essentially like, you know, the equivalent of like grabbing you by the scruff of your neck, like, do it. What's wrong? You scared now?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Damn.
You know, and it got to the point where he was like screaming like, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, and it shook it out of him. He said, man, I would never think about that ever again.
That is crazy.
I mean, that's magic. You know what I mean?
That's
it's like,
powerful.
It doesn't make any sense, but it makes all the sense in the world. And that's where experiences like that, I like when people come and it, you know, they don't have to be from any specific walk of life or whatever, but we all deal with our own versions of trauma, stress, fear, worry, you know, all these things. And if you can help someone channel their superpower, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. I'll lay in the forest every day of the week if I can do that.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
What do you think comes from like specifically that high dose, just psychologically and just overall?
Well, I personally started going 9 and up because that's the dose that makes me purge. You know what I mean? And I do what I can to eat a healthy diet. So one, you're not thinking about, you know, improving your diet when it's time to purge. You know what I mean? Because if you ate spaghetti, you're not going to be too stoked on getting sick.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? So you want to eat fruits and vegetables and do all that type of stuff. You know, I've heard in like, what was it? Ancient Greece. You know what I'm talking? The old secrets. It's on the tip of my tongue right now. But they used to drink Guillain, right? And that was a psychoactive brew, and they would purge on purpose. You know what I mean? So
it's like a soma. Like, you know, that's a word they have, a common word for like, soma, for like a spiritual drink.
Why is it slipping my mind right now? So anyway,
Google it.
Ancient Greece, and it was starts with an E. And it was a mystery school that went on for over 1,000 years, and they drank Guillain, which no one really knows exactly what it was, but Soma was a good call, like you said.
Yeah.
And they would fast beforehand. I get hangry, so it's hard for me to fast. So I just try to eat healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the 9-gram dose took me to the point where I can purge, because I've experienced before, if I'm using this as a psychological tool to clean my spirit, right? Sometimes it'll bring, let's say I ate 5 grams. It might bring all that stuff to the surface, but then I'm more angry. You know what I mean? I'm more, whatever the negative traits are, I've just brought them up closer. You know what I mean? So if I don't get them out, then I don't feel light again.
So it's like, if you just bring it to the surface when you leave, you're just like, it's going to bother you. Like something's still there.
Right. And if you're drinking beer and taking the mushrooms and at a party, you probably won't experience that. You know what I mean? That's just a different path. But under these circumstances, I go high dose in the woods, no music, just a fire. Everything else is quiet. It's you and the elements, and that's that. You know what I mean?
How many people have you like helped out around you, you think?
Probably 20, you know what I mean? But on several occasions, you know what I mean? And and again, it's like one of those things where I'm very picky too, because I've had a couple strange experiences, you know what I mean, with someone I didn't feel so good about taking out there to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And things can get weird. One thing I don't do is I don't judge anybody, and when I tell the stories, I don't say any names.
Yeah, respect that.
Out of respect, because it's like, you know, there's no telling where this will take you, man. You're popping the top and opening a hood on somebody's psychology, you know what I mean, and on their history, their trauma, and it's like you have to trust. You have to hold that in your heart. You know what I mean? You have to hold that close and keep them safe.
Yeah, you don't know what's underneath the surface for everybody. And it could be a ton of shit.
Right.
Yeah, and oftentimes most people aren't even self-aware of everything that they've got.
Right.
That needs to spill over eventually. So I think it's really positive what you're doing.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. I'd be honored to join you one of these days.
Man, I'd be honored to have you.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really cool experience. My wife will totally understand. She's like, have fun, you know. She's gonna be, just come home.
Exactly.
Which I will do. But yeah, I think that'd be great, man. I'd like to see how you go about doing things. And again, you're one of those people, you know, just from this conversation, you know, I told you my anxieties, right? And it all circles around my family, but I feel like you'd be able to help me through that. You know what I'm saying?
All the way. No, 100%. I mean, that's kind of I think that's the point when you're sitting. Like I've I'll tell you one real quick. My sister and I were tripping one time, and man, she's probably done it with me 10 times, 9 grams and up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, she's a trooper, man. Like, I don't know too many people psychologically. Her name's Pam. She wants me to say her name.
Okay.
She's one of the very few that
Shout out,
say
Pam.
my name. So I was like, all right, cool. But anyway, there was one night when, man, we had done so many and we're always cool. Like, we got this joke. Like, one time it looked like some invisible man was kicking her around the yard and she was just puking everywhere. And I'm chuckling a little bit, but I'm still like, are you okay? And she's like, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then I felt like saying, are you okay? One more time. And I said it so many times, finally I was like, you know what? I'm done saying, are you okay? I'm just going to throw this damn life jacket at you and you're on land. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so we got
good.
this running joke. But anyway, she gets to a point where she was like, I'm not okay. So I go over on her raft and I'm her air mattress, we call it a raft. And I'm like, you know, I'm hugging her and I'm like, everything's cool. And she's like, I'm dying. Talk to me. I'm dying. And I'm talking and I make it a point to keep the sentences very short and repetitive and very calm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do well digesting full sentences or full ideas when I'm in that space.
Yeah.
So I assume other people don't either. So I kept telling her, and this is all intuitive. I'm on 9 grams too when this is going on. And I'm saying, please continue to die. Shed these layers. This is why we came. She'd say, this is why we came. This is why we came. I said, this is why we came. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And she would look at me and say, happy birthday? Like a question. And I'd say, happy birthday. And then I said, and this was a full moon. I said, now bask. I'm sorry. I said, continue to die, shed these layers. And then at some point, intuitively, I said, now please bask in the light of the full moon and be reborn. And when I tell you, she like, it went from me holding someone who was like a baby, like, you know, completely out of it. She wasn't in her mind right there.
Yeah.
She was in a place. And when I said, and please be reborn, she was like woke up and said, what, was that you? And I was like, I had to let her go because it was awkward at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't never hold her like a baby.
Yeah.
But when she was in that space, it was completely warranted.
She
and cool.
needed, yeah.
But the minute that I said, please be reborn, she fell out of it. And I was like, damn, you're back. But it was crazy, man. You know, and the mushroom allowed me, because she kept saying in the middle, she would find time to be like, am I wigging you out? Because she knew I was in the space too. And I said, you know what? Oddly enough, not at all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here to protect you. I got you.
Man, I love that.
It was crazy, bro.
That is
Crazy.
powerful. Well, yeah, again, I'm stoked to do it with you.
Man, me too.
Share that experience.
Me too.
A couple more questions and we'll get you out of here, though.
Yeah.
I could continue talking to you for a while.
Me too.
You know, and next thing you know, it's like, where are we even at?
Like 2 days later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Honey, I'm sorry. But, you know, again, like we'll definitely revisit this conversation.
Sure.
And not just in here, but elsewhere too, man. I see that happening 100%.
Right.
What do you think is would you say that was a massive transformation in that ceremony? Like, have you seen some complete, like, just crazy transformations in front of your eyes?
Absolutely, man. I mean, you know, my sister comes from a really crazy, rough background, and she's just breaking a generational curse on purpose, on schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every day, new improvements. You know, she went home from that journey and like threw out half of her house. I went home from that journey and gave away all my furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I was moving in the next 6 months, but for 4 months after that journey, I didn't have a couch. I didn't have anything in any room except for my bedroom. I had a bed. And it was like, my girl at one point was like, I knew your sentiment, but I think you might have been a little early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We
Like,
could delay this a little bit.
yeah, and I was giving stuff away. People on Facebook were like, free? Really? And I'm like, nothing crazy, but I'm just saying everything's free. Take it all. You can have it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get rid of the old energy. You know, and it was like, not even necessarily bad energy, just old energy. It's time for a new season.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? I had to get rid of that old energy. And then at one point, you know, I was asked like, well, what do we do when we need a couch? We'll find a couch when we need a couch. I don't need a couch right now.
A lot of couches out there.
A lot of couches out there. You know what I mean? But like, it'll come new with the new energy.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think, like, is, you know, from a societal standpoint, what do you think the biggest misconception is about psilocybin? You know, because there's a lot of those.
Right. I would say, I mean, one thing that comes every time you bring it up, not you, but when I bring it up or a person brings it up, especially in Nashville, Tennessee, the first thing that someone says is chocolate bar and microdose. You know what I mean? And that's cool and all, but I've heard a lot of chocolate companies getting in trouble for using synthetic compounds that are in fact not psilocybin.
Heard about that too.
You know, and that's, so I'm not a fan, man. I like the fruits. You know, if I could bet on it every time, or if I know the source, you know, and I can go visit the source, cool. But one of the most common misconceptions are that they even call this a drug. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
it's a medicine. Now, can it be misused? Well, yeah, of course. Anything can be misused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's a medicine, man. And yeah, if you take it on the roof, you'll probably die. If you take it next to the highway, you'll probably die. But if you prepare your set and setting, I hate to be so obvious and cliche, but you know, if you prepare your set and setting and make sure that everything is safe and all the variables and all the familiars are in place, you're probably going to experience the medicinal side of the compound.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be my thing, is like, just treat it with respect is the biggest thing for me. It's kind of like anybody, you know, me and you, when we met, we treat each other with respect. You know what I mean? It's like, we've had a great conversation and we're friends now. You know what I mean? So it's like, same thing with the mushroom. If this thing is an intelligent entity and the mycelium can solve mazes and literally break down stone into soil to get animals out of the ocean onto the land, and it's played such a serious role in human evolution and the evolution of our planet. Yeah. Why would I be out of my mind enough to think that it's not doing something similar to my mind and spirit?
Yeah.
You know?
Because you are a part of nature too.
Period. And I don't need scientific backing. I get all the backing I get when I go down to that circle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. It all comes from your experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You talk about leaving the world a better place, you know, than you found it, right? What does that actually mean to you?
It's major, man. I think it's being extremely proactive. One of the things that I've noticed, like, for instance, when we're on the road, you know, there might be a security guy who's guarding a production room. Nothing too important. The room's not too important, or the guy's wearing a uniform and a COVID mask, and he's easy to walk past and not acknowledge. And when we do these birthday parties at the end of the show, I'll run down the hall and, like, I won't say what it's about or anything, but I'll like, hey, come on, we're singing happy birthday. And I'll get all the people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And make it a point to get the ones that are hard to pay attention to.
Yeah.
The ones that are easy to walk past, and include them. Come on, come in with me. You know, and make eye contact, ask their name, tell them good job, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I think that's a part of making the world a better place. Growth and development in your own psychology and spirit is like, there was a time when I would walk down the street and smile at somebody, and I was on this path trying to get to this. And if they didn't smile back, I'd be like, man, that motherfucker, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And now I've grown past that and realized, instead of cursing them, I need to bless them.
Yeah.
Or just keep on my motion. You know what I mean? Yeah. But definitely don't acknowledge any negativity.
Yeah.
I mean, so making the world a better place comes with continuous, consistent self-improvement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And showing others grace, you know, goes along with what you were saying, man. Like,
remaining a student.
Yeah.
I'm a student forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You should never stop learning. I say it all the time. I'm going to be ripping mask off till the day I die. You know,
that's the beauty of it. That's incredible.
Yeah. I never want to be, if anybody ever says, Joe, you figured it out, I'll be like, dude, I know. I'm just going to keep doing this, but I'm never going to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that looks like until I'm gone. Right. But yeah, just staying eternal growth, man, is what it's all about. And it sounds like you're on that exact journey, man. And dude, it's been really cool hearing your story. Man, and just your experiences and just everything that you're into, man. I've really enjoyed this time.
Me too, man. I appreciate you big time, Joe. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad to hang again and come back. That was a great time.
Hell yeah, man. I can't wait for it. I do got one final question for you, though.
What's that?
Edward, what is your relentless pursuit?
A relentless pursuit is making the world a better place, elevating the frequencies around me, and continuing on a path of improvement.
Man, beautiful. Well said, my man.
Thank you, brother.
And lastly, where can everybody find you and support you and what you got going on?
So I have Instagram is where I'm most active. That's edward.crowe, Crowe. And then I have edwardcrowe.com, no dot in the middle, just edwardcrowe.com. I got a TikTok and some other stuff. YouTube is edwardcrowe369. But yeah.
Right on, man.
That's about it.
Hell yeah, guys, show them some love. You know, if you got some celebrations coming up, get Murder Cigars. It's the only way. It's the only cigar.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Yo, happy birthday. All right, man. I'm going to shake your hand.
Let's go.
Appreciate you, brother. All right, guys. Until next time.
See ya.
One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in this show, and honestly in life, is that healing doesn't live in just one lane. Some people find it through addiction recovery, some through therapy, some through faith, some through hard conversations that they've avoided for years, and some for finally being honest about what they're carrying. I started this show to give people a voice, to share real journeys, real struggles, and real growth. And what it's shown me is how many people are walking through similar battles, even if it looks different on the surface. Through this platform, I've been connected with people across so many lanes: addiction recovery, mental health, veterans and first responders, faith, marriage and relationships, trauma, and everything in between. I want to say this clearly. If you're listening right now and you're struggling, please reach out. You don't need to know exactly what you need. You don't need the right words. You don't have to even know exactly where to start. But through my network, I'll do everything I can to get you connected with the right person in the right lane for where you are. That's what this show is about. Real stories, real connection, and reminding people that there is a way forward.